welcome to episode 52 of Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan.
And I'm Veronica.
And we're two cinephiles who love to talk movies.
We have weekly episodes discussing the newest films, creating lists and drafts, and keeping you updated on the latest movie headlines and awards races.
As a reminder, please like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, which helps more people find the show.
And share it with any cinephiles in your life.
Today is a special double review episode here at Some Like It Real, as two of the year's celebrated movies are now playing nationwide.
Yes, those movies are Matt Johnson's Tony and Jane Schoenbrun's Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma.
Chefs, romance, blood, dip and sauce are just a few of the things involved with both of these movies, so stay tuned.
Very excited to review both films, but before doing so, let's play some catch-up. So I think the number one news story coming out of this week is, unfortunately, the very untimely passing of Hayden Panettiere. Just so devastating to hear this. I think, Bryan, I think you were the first one who texted me about it. You just said, not Hayden Panettiere. I was like, oh God, let me check the news. And yeah, unfortunately, this is just really devastating. I obviously as a person, very tragic, and, all of our thoughts go out to her loved ones and her family and everything. But I think for us, kind of the age that we are, sort of like Gen Z millennial cusp people, she was just in a lot of our childhood movies, and continued to do good work throughout there, as she got older and everything too. So this was just so horrible to hear. Just really terrible. After, we're going to mention some projects of hers that we loved, but, so soon after losing Michelle Trachtenberg, the two stars of Ice Princess, which is like such a wonderful movie that was big for me in childhood. This was so horrible to hear. And the tributes coming out have largely been very, very beautiful from her co-stars and her friends and everything. But just absolutely terrible news.
Yeah. When I got this text from one of my friends, I had to, similar to you, check to see if it was true. And then when all the various outlets were reporting it and then just reading more about what happened, it's really tragic, especially too considering the fact that just a few months ago, she had put out a memoir and she was doing press and going around and talking about it. And it seemed that things were heading in the right direction for her. So for this news to come out of her passing, and she was only 36, that's way too young to go. And, just knowing about the tragedy that she has gone through these last few years with the loss of her brother, and then her mental health and her emotional health, and then the trauma and all of that stuff. It's really gotten to know that she went through a really bad batch of years, and I hope that she's at peace now. It's just devastating that we live in a world where she's no longer a part of it, because like you said, she was in so many projects throughout our lifetime. When I tell you that she was one of my longtime crushes, I truly mean that. I have loved Hayden Panettiere my entire life, from when I was a kid all the way until my adult years. And even though she hasn't done a lot in the last 5 to 10 years, she was always someone that I loved seeing in any project. When she came back to the Scream franchise just a few years ago, I was so excited to see her in a project again, because she had a talent unlike anybody. She was beautiful, she was ferocious, she was badass, she was great with comedy and drama and horror and action. She did a little bit of everything, and she was also a gifted singer too. So she showed different breeds of life through her talents as a performer. And this loss, we've had a lot of devastating celebrity losses throughout the year, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, this devastates me more than the other, but honestly, if I have to look and think about the ones that really hit hard for me, this might be the one, because, again, I've loved her my whole life. I grew up with Hayden Panettiere, as did you. So just reading all the tributes, it's really beautiful to see the impact that she had on so many people, not just us fans, but the people that she collaborated with throughout the years. It's a really devastating loss.
It's just terrible. Yeah, and I know what you mean, that, you don't want to you can compare celebrity deaths or anything, but just the nature of this being tragic, being sudden, I don't think anyone was expecting this, and so it's just all the more jarring and shocking and everything. So yeah, it's hard to, when someone is such a young star, we feel like we've known her since she was a child, and for better or worse, I know there's a lot of conversation now about the ethics of having child stars and things like that, and how so many of them do struggle later on in life, and so it's there's a conversation going around it, but I just think it's important to just remember Hayden and the beautiful work she's done, and it seemed by pretty much all accounts that she was a really good person too.
Do you have a favorite project or projects that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I have to pick probably my number one that I just like. If I see her, this one just pops in my head. It's that Bring It On movie, Bring It On All or Nothing, which I believe laughed at for drafting recently. I don't know who laughed at it. I won't say any names.
That would probably be myself.
But it's a very good movie. Almost as good as the original, I would say. Her and Solange Knowles, a couple other actors in that are really Jake McDorman. It's a really fun movie, and she's just it's a Bring It On movie. Like she's the rich white girl who goes and learns a few lessons and gives some really cool, fun performances, and she gets to dance, and I just think she's so lovely in that. But I do also think that again, kind of with like her passing and everything, that I think I was also thinking about so much is that I love Remember the Titans, and she is like she's like maybe 10 years old in that. She's like really young, and she is such a like little firecracker at that. I think I had seen that maybe soon after I had seen her in Bring It On or Ice Princess or something, so I already knew her as like a teenager, and then I was like, that's baby Hayden Panettiere, and she's just hilarious in that, and like fully formed from the second she was a child. She's just got that like really really fiery spirit, and she's really funny and really really great in that. I just like I can't really think about that without getting too upset that that little girl is gone. But what about for you?
And to think too that she was acting toe to toe with Denzel, one of the best actors ever, and like she did so good. Oh, I didn't think I was going to hear advice from a 5-year-old. I'm 9, actually. Like that clip has been flowing around throughout the last week. I love that movie as well. Can't comment on the Bring It On because I haven't seen it, but again, seen clips throughout the last week and everything of her doing the flips and everything, and just the energy from her was unlike anyone that I had ever seen. But for me, I would say, just to go off a few roles, her performance as Kirby Reed in the Scream franchise is outstanding. Mm-hmm. I am not a horror guy, admittedly, but I do really love the Scream franchise outside the 6th one, and I didn't bother with the last one that just came out, but I particularly love what she did in Scream 4, and this clip has also been flown around of her on the phone with Ghostface naming like every possible horror remake and just her spitballing it. I'm just like, this is so compelling. It's so good. And when they brought back that character, I was really, really happy to see her jump back into the role that she really kicked butt with many, many years prior. But then other roles for me,
I believe she also supported Melissa Barrera when they screwed her over.
Yes, she did. She was one of the few that supported her in the midst of that too, which also makes this all the more tragic.
Very much,
I grew up watching Heroes on TV with my family, and she killed it as Claire Bennett. That was such a powerhouse performance, and I haven't watched that show in many, many years, so I can't say if it holds up for me, but I do remember loving her on that show. And then also Nashville, which she did a few years later with Connie Britton, where she showcased that she has a beautiful singing voice, which she had already done prior, but she plays a troubled country singer, and elements of that performance kind of mirrored what she was going through in her real life, and I think that was a really tender performance. But to me, the big thing that I think of when I think of Hayden Panettiere is not even a movie, it's not even a TV show, it's a video game, and it's Kingdom Hearts. And I've talked about on the pod of how much of a Kingdom Hearts fan I am. Like, that is my favorite game franchise ever, and she originated the voice of Kairi in the first 2 games. And this past weekend was D23, and they had a whole celebration of Kingdom Hearts because it's about to have its 25th anniversary. The 4th game is coming out next year. And just the day before her passing, they had this panel with the 2 lead actors, one of whom is Haley Joel Osment, and they did a live read of the final scene of the 2nd game. And it was so devastating knowing that Kairi wasn't there. And then the following day, for us to literally lose Kairi made it so devastating. And it's just like, it really is a gutting loss, and it's crazy to know that she's not here anymore. It's really devastating.
Yeah, just very sad that the icons of our childhood that we lost someone so important and so lovely. So yes, rest in peace to Hayden.
Rest in peace. Sending love to her family and her loved ones during this very rough time.
Yeah. All right. Well, no good transition there, but we do have some other news to get to. So, do you want to tell us about the X-Men cast?
Yes, speaking of D23, so D23 was last weekend. They announced a ton of movie things and TV show things, and obviously for me, everything with Kingdom Hearts was the cherry on top. But when it came to the movie stuff, we had a bit of a Marvel panel, and Kevin Feige came on stage to talk about more of the X-Men cast. And now, we've talked throughout the last few weeks of people slowly joining this project. Obviously, the first casting we knew of was Sadie Sink, who made her debut as Jean Grey in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And then it was announced that Samara Weaving was going to come on as Emma Frost and Kit Connor as Cyclops. But then at D23, we had 4 major announcements that none of us saw coming. None of us were expecting, although one casting was pretty obvious because they had been rumored for the last few weeks or even months. So joining this new X-Men film, which, by the way, we do have a release date now. It's coming out May 5th, 2028. So just a little over a year and a half before it comes out. So joining this group of mutants, we have newcomer Maya Boyd as Storm. This is going to be her feature film debut, which I always love whenever someone makes their debut in a high-profile blockbuster. I think that's very inspiring for any actor to be given the opportunity to star in a major tentpole, especially one that's like X-Men. And then we have Indy Navarrete, who has been rumored to be a part of this project for the last few months. She is going to be playing Rogue. And then I'm saving these 2 big castings for last because these 2 came out of nowhere. So I didn't think we were going to find out who our Professor X was. And there was also a part of me that's like, who would even play Professor X? And to be honest, this is the last person that I expected to play him. Christopher Abbott will be portraying Professor X in this X-Men movie, the first ever American to bring this character to life, who was previously played by Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy. Obviously, neither of them are American, so it's going to be interesting to see an American jump into this role. I love that someone tweeted, oh, he got that his child's college fund for this movie because he recently just had a kid, and now he's jumping into an X-Men movie, so his kid's college fund is clearly covered at this point. So good for him jumping on.
Aubrey Plaza can keep making weird shit as long as Christopher Abbott's got their kid covered with X-Men.
Exactly, and hopefully he brings his Christopher Abbott-isms to the role. But the big casting that came out of this announcement was the person who's going to be, I believe, playing the main villain of this movie. There's no confirmation if they're just a villain or the villain. I would assume they're the villain. So Mr. Sinister is going to be one of, if not maybe the villain of this X-Men movie, and he is going to be played by none other than my favorite actor working today, Adam Driver. When I saw this news, when I saw this announcement that he was joining the MCU, it caught me off guard because, first of all, there was no reports at all, not even rumors, that he was going to join this project. So this came out of nowhere, and I love a casting that comes out of nowhere. Also, it is a little surprising that he's jumping back into another high-profile franchise. He did Star Wars, obviously, and he was, in my opinion, the saving grace of that sequel trilogy. But now he's going to be playing Mr. Sinister. I don't know a ton about this character, and please don't say that I'm dumb for not knowing. I really don't. I'm sorry. I just watch the movies. I don't read the comics or study the lore. But I love Adam Driver, and I liked his little video where he's like, oh, I'm going to be playing Magneto. Wait, no, I'm not? Oh, okay. I'm playing Mr. Sinister. And I'm like, oh, great. So, honestly, like, I don't know how to feel about this X-Men project, but I like this cast. I like the cast that's been put together so far. I like all these actors. I'm excited to see Maya Boyd in something. And, yeah, I didn't think that Adam Driver would play a Marvel villain, but, you know, he played the Star Wars villain, so I guess he's like, well, now I got to play a Marvel villain. And he's talked about wanting to be in the Marvel project for many, many years. I guess this one really enticed him. So, yeah, the X-Men cast is fully come together. There's still supposedly more people going to be announced in the coming weeks. But for this announcement, how do you feel about these castings?
I think mixed positive on it, pretty much. Yeah, I know, Indy Navarrete had definitely been in talks. She'd kind of been seemingly campaigning for a role in X-Men, which, who can blame her? She's obviously having such a breakthrough moment now. I think, for her and as for everyone in this cast, my wish for them is that this does not, completely cut them off from working on other projects that would, potentially be cooler or more artistic than whatever they're going to get to accomplish next one, even if it's good. And I'm hoping that it is good. But so I think that it makes sense for her to, up her profile in this moment and take on a big role like this. Maya Boyd as Storm, I do think that's very exciting. I like the idea of casting some unknown, somebody who we, don't have any baggage with or preconceived notions. She's been a Broadway actress, but doesn't really have any screen credits. I had heard Jamie Lawson's name thrown around for Storm, and that she would have been really cool too. But
I agree.
But cool to have an unknown.
But she's involved with Batman, not as a superhero, but she's the mayor of Gotham City.
True. Yeah. That's right. So, yeah. Well, MCU, DC. You can overlap. You can double dip.
Oh, absolutely.
But then Christopher Abbott as Professor X, I'm here for it. I'm happy to see him. I really love him as an actor. I got to see him on Broadway this year, a couple months ago, in Death of a Salesman with Nathan Lane and Laurie Metcalf, and he was fantastic in that. I was kind of curious about it. He strikes me as someone who, not in everything. I actually haven't watched Girls. I know a lot of people love him in that, but a lot of his film roles and stuff kind of strikes me as a bit like an actor who I associate being with kind of like anger and kind of having a lot of edge to him. I could have seen him more as Magneto than Professor X, but I think he's a great actor. I think he can be plenty versatile, and I'm sure he'll do a great job with it. And of course, securing the college fund for him and Aubrey Plaza's baby, very important. And then Adam Driver, I don't think that I hadn't definitely heard any rumors about him in this role. And it's interesting you said that like he's been like circling Marvel for a while. I think Kevin Feige has been pretty open about like actively courting him for many years and trying to get him in a project, no matter what it is. So I don't know if the hesitation was just a scheduling issue and he was willing to do it, or if he hadn't been convinced by a project up until now. So I mean I guess I'm hoping that bodes well for the project, that he can be pretty selective, and he decided to sign on for this one. And I mean, he could play a great villain. He's done it already. So I'm certainly intrigued by that. I would kind of get I wouldn't be surprised if this is like he's the villain for this movie and then he's kind of done, in whatever, as done as you can be in comic book storytelling, where they love to bring people back. But I don't know. I would imagine he probably doesn't want to sign on to play this for the next 15 years of his life. But we'll see if he was. His signing on makes me feel probably the most interested about the quality of the project, and I don't think he would just he doesn't need he's not a young up and coming star or someone who needs to up his profile in any way. Like if he's doing this, it's because he wants to. So that bodes well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him play this character. I've heard very different things about the character. Apparently he's very flamboyant and over the top, and I'm like, Adam Driver could do that. Like sure, he could definitely. Adam Driver could do anything. Let's be honest, he could do any project and kill it. That's why he's one of the best working today. But yeah, very interested to see how this X-Men movie plays out for sure, and I'm curious to see who else they announce, and I'm interested to know if Magneto's going to be in this movie. I would assume so, and like who would play him and everything. I'm just very interested to see who else gets added to this ensemble.
Yeah, I have heard the theory that they could possibly hold back on Magneto for a movie or so, or he's introduced, as a surprise in it or something along those lines. But I do get the sense there are definitely going to be other roles announced. Like we don't have there was a rumor about Charles Melton playing Beast, but seems to be that he's dropped out of that consideration now. So seemingly going to be another casting for that coming down the line.
I still hope that my girl Kaylee Spaney finds her way in this project. I think she would kill it. I mean, they haven't said it no to Beast. I mean, maybe Beast hasn't been announced yet and everything. And I was reading too that a person that was in consideration for playing Professor X is Tom Pelphrey. Which that would be an interesting. I just watched Task very recently, and I thought he was unbelievable in that. He's also a New Jersey guy, so like representation and everything. But
did you watch Ozark?
No, I haven't finished Ozark.
Okay.
I tried it years ago. I wasn't really into it. I was like, okay, you're trying to be like Breaking Bad, and I'm not really vibing with it. But I'll give it another go.
He's fantastic on a season arc of that too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he was awesome on task and everything. So I'm sure he'll kill it in that. But yeah, so our next story, fittingly enough, also involves a Marvel actor.
Yes, it does. We have an announcement that Dave Bautista is set to star as Kratos in the God of War TV series. So he's taking over the role from Ryan Hurst, who was cast in the role. He had done filming for it already, but he was injured on set back in June and suffered an injury that required surgery and would have delayed production. So it had been announced that he was going to be recast, that they, I guess didn't have any other option, couldn't stop the production going forward. So, yeah, Dave Bautista stepping in here. So, we talked about this a little bit, but, both love Dave Bautista, but Ryan Hurst has maybe not gotten the profile that Dave Bautista has in the past years, and we both like him as an actor and would have loved for Ryan Hurst to get this showcase. But yeah, Brian, what do you think about this swap out?
So, the character of Kratos is was a perfect role for Ryan Hurst, like a perfect role for him. If you look at pictures of the character and then you saw pictures of Ryan Hurst in the makeup as the character, I mean, it was like an uncanny resemblance to the character in the game. And they shot,
I think
believe,
he had talked about like wanting to do the character and caring about it a lot and stuff.
Yes, and I believe they had shot 4 or 5 episodes, so they shot a lot of stuff for the show. And for them to just now scrap it, and now they're going to have to reshoot every sequence scene that Ryan Hurst was in with Batista, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I do believe that on paper, Batista is a great fit for the role, but I am really gutted by the fact that Ryan Hurst, like you said, is an actor that hasn't had the opportunity to really be the lead in anything, film or television, and this could have finally given him the opportunity to do that. And for him to now be kicked out of being in this project because of an injury is really devastating. And I know that this happens all the time in Hollywood. People get injured, they have to back out of projects. I get it, it's a business strategy and everything, but sometimes instances like this make it all the more disappointing. But if you're asking me my thoughts on the casting, it is a really good casting. And Batista has proven himself to be a really outstanding actor outside the MCU. He's become more than just the wrestler turned actor. He's really showcased that he has great emotional weight to him. He's also really funny. He obviously nails the physicality of his roles. I think he's going to crush it in the role, but I am definitely disappointed that Ryan Hurst is no longer involved with this project.
Yeah, I don't have any association with God of War or anything. I don't have any opinion on that, but definitely disappointing to not see Ryan Hurst get to take on this role.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But the next piece of news is something that I personally am very excited for. And this news came out of nowhere. I was like, what the hell is this? So it was announced that FX has greenlit the limited series Legends, which will be starring the cast of a show that Ryan Hurst was fittingly a part of. One of my all-time favorite shows, Sons of Anarchy. So Veronica doesn't know what this project's about, so I'm going to read it as we go
I heard that there
along.
was a Sons of Anarchy show, and that I heard something about like it not being a direct narrative thing. So
Yes.
please tell me, and I will react live.
So this is how it's described. When the cast of Sons of Anarchy reunites at a fan convention after more than a decade, the line between life and art blurs as the fractured brotherhood finds itself up against a real-world threat more dangerous than anything they ever faced in their show. So this is basically something that Charlie Hunnam pitched to FX as Sons of Anarchy meets Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's Galaxy Quest or Three Amigos. It's that.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to
Okay.
be playing versions of themselves, and the people that will be involved in this are as follows, as of right now. We have Charlie Hunnam, Ron Perlman, Katie Seagal, Maggie Siff, Mark Boone Jr., Tommy Flanagan, Kim Coates, and Theo Rossi. So for me personally, when this was announced and I saw this, I'm like, this sounds absolutely stupid. This does not sound like a good idea at all. As much as I love Sense of Anarchy and as much as I love the idea of all these guys come together for a project again, I don't know how I feel about this. However, as the days have gone by, it's sitting very well with me, and I think this sounds like a really, really cool project that delves into the meta-ness of it all and could be poking fun at itself. I'm really interested to see if this is going to lean more into the comedic side or the dramatic side, mix both of them in. And I know that Charlie Hunnam was the one who pitched this idea to FX. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this show plays out. And honestly, I'm really excited to check it out. And reading this article about how the FX president reacted to this, he stated this: when Charlie brought us this inspired idea, we instantly sparked to his bold and entertaining vision. Charlie's talents are on full display as a writer, performer, and executive producer, leading the real-life brotherhood on an adventure that is both a love letter to the series and a fun meta twist on what fans think they know. So honestly, this sounds like a really cool project for me, and I'm very excited to check it out. You had told me right before we started recording, and this is the first time that we ever talked about Sons of Anarchy ever, is that you watched Sons of Anarchy. So now knowing the context of this show, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I had heard there was going to be some sort of spinoff. I assumed it was something more conventional than this, but it's interesting to me. I watched, I think I caught up maybe after there had been probably 2 or 3 seasons out of the show. I caught up and then watched it in real time, and I really loved the first several seasons. I think by the end it got kind of jumped the shark a little bit. I was not too. I watched the whole thing, but I wasn't quite as invested in it. So that's kind of a nice spot to be in because I like the fundamentals of the show, but I don't hold it precious or anything. I'm not like, oh, it had a perfect ending, why would you ever touch it again? So I mean the number one thing that brought me to the show was Ron Perlman. I absolutely love him, so he's gonna be back for this, and I love Katie Sagal too. So I guess are they like they're gonna be playing themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, I'm interested. I always like we are kind of drowning in meta takes on things, but for me that's a something can always be interesting, can always be mined from that. And this is not the kind of IP that you would necessarily think to go that direction. It's not like it's got a giant rabid fan base or anything. It's kind of been off the air for a while. But yeah, I think it could be interesting.
Yeah, I just think that it's going to be really interesting to see how this show fares, and hopefully it will introduce a new audience to Sons of Anarchy and maybe provide a bit of a resurgence for that show, because you don't really hear people talking about this show. And I think about how in the last week since the show Lanterns premiered, now all of a sudden on Twitter, all these people are talking about Friday Night Lights because they're like, Kyle Chandler, great actor. And I'm like, where the fuck have you people been? Like, he's been a great actor for a long time. But if it's encouraging people to watch Friday Night Lights, which is also one of the best shows of all time, then so be it. So hopefully this show comes out, does tremendous success, is much worthy of its existence, and then people are like, oh, I'm gonna rewatch Sons of Anarchy again, or I'm gonna jump into Sons of Anarchy for the first time. So I'm really excited to check this out. And I also do think that Charlie Hunnam is a very underrated actor. I don't think a lot of people give him the credit that he deserves. Yeah, he may not have been in the best projects, but honestly, for me, he's always a highlight of anything that he's in, especially the last few years. I think that he has really solidified himself as a pretty talented actor. So I'm excited to see him collaborate with this team again, and especially considering that he came up with this idea. I'm very fascinated to see how it goes.
Yeah, it's a meta turn like that. Naturally, you do think like, oh, it's gonna be comedy. They're gonna kind of be skewering it. What if it's like a gritty drama?
That's what I think it might be. That's
could
the thing.
be. I mean, that makes more sense with the tone of the show. So that's kind of a swing. That's kind of something
I think
that
it's
hasn't
probably
really been
going to
done.
lean into both, but I'd be interested to see how it pans out.
Will be interesting for sure.
Absolutely.
Another upcoming project that we wanted to touch on here. Daniel Roher has set his next film, which is going to be an adaptation of a novel, Paradox Inc. Lord and Miller are set to produce it, and so this is Daniel Roher. We were both very very taken with Tuner, his film this year. He previously did the documentary Navalny as well. So this one comes to us now with this is a script from Matthew Robinson, and I don't know that we know too much about the film, but described as a rivalry between a scrappy startup and a dysfunctional big tech company racing to build the world's first consumer time machine. So sounds like it's going to be a sci-fi twist, maybe a little bit of social commentary in there. Definitely a lot of big tech discourse going on in our current movies. So what do you think about this new project? Are you excited to see this one when it comes out?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited to see more from Daniel Roher, especially after the tremendous success that he had with Tuner, which I always find it fascinating whenever a filmmaker transitions from documentary filmmaking to narrative filmmaking. And I think the transition was so seamless and very impressive. So I'm excited to see him lean into a project like this with probably a higher budget because Universal is going to be releasing this, and then Lord and Miller, of course, producing it too. Like, I'm interested to know if this is going to be comedic or serious or thrilling. I don't know what tone that this is going to invoke, but I'm really excited to see how it pans out for sure. And yeah, I'm all for more work from him because I do stand by Tuner being one of the stronger films to come out this year.
I agree. Yeah, I was kind of looking at my top films of the year, and I was feeling like I should probably move Tuner up one or two spots. I want to watch it again too because I feel like it would probably perform really well on a rewatch. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely got it on our radar for his next project.
absolutely. And we have a few trailers to talk about before getting into our main topic. So we're going to start with the new trailer for Wildwood. We talked about the teaser a while back, and we both celebrated how incredible it looks, how awesome it is to continue having films like this made in the stop motion animation, made by human hands, no AI involved, no computers involved, just human magic. And this trailer solidified my excitement for the movie. It looks emotional, it looks exhilarating, and I cannot wait to check it out. I love a lot of Leica's work, and it's very exciting to see this film come out in the midst of all these other animated films come out where it's primarily CGI and like you'll get some of the hand drawn stuff sprinkled throughout the year too, but a primarily stop motion film coming out, that's always a win for me. So yeah, Wildwood looks just as good as it did the first time around with that first trailer, and yeah, I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, I think that first one sold me. It already looked really beautiful, and don't want to know too much about plot or anything. Want to just be as surprised as possible when I see it. But yeah, it definitely looks gorgeous, and especially it's a pretty fairly competitive year for animation. So I think that this is still going to be a standout once we all see it.
Another film that looked pretty incredible was Club Kid. We finally got our first trailer. This will be coming out from A24 later this year. This premiered at Cannes. It is the directorial debut of Jordan Firstman, who also stars in the film. Cara Delevingne, Kirby Howell-Baptiste, Colleen Camp, Diego Calva also round out the cast. After I heard about this movie at Cannes, this was high up on my watch list, my most anticipated for the rest of the year. I remember after it showed at the festival, I got so many texts from people saying, Brian, you need to put Club Kid on your radar. It is coming of age. It's New York. It's queer. It is very much up your alley. And I'm like, okay, I am sold. And then the trailer came out, and I was a wreck. This looks so amazing. I'm so excited to check this film out, especially with all the buzz surrounding it. And yeah, admittedly, I'm not as well versed with Jordan Firstman. I know that he is on I Love LA, and I do like that show, but I can't say that I've seen anything else with him. But the fact that he's not only in the film, but he's writing and directing it, I cannot wait to check this out. This trailer blew my socks off, and it made me very upset. Like I was a mess when the trailer was playing. I was like, "Oh, it's been a while since the trailer actually made me cry." Like I was sitting down watching the trailer and my eyes got so watery and I'm like, "Oh, this is not good at all." But this must mean that the film looks incredible and people are saying it's incredible, so I cannot wait for this. This is easily one of my most anticipated films for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I had been hearing the buzz after it premiered and everything, and yeah, I like Jordan Firstman on I Love LA. I also got this. I saw him host a Q&A for Splitsville when that came out with the guys from Splitsville, and he was really funny in that. So yeah, I've mostly my exposure to him is mostly him just being like pure comedy, and I think he's very good at that. I pretty much enjoy his presence whenever I see him. So yeah, I didn't know this was gonna lean so emotional, and definitely it looks like it's gonna hit that nice mix between comedy and drama, and yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I think that from what we see of his performance in the trailer looks really great. Yeah, looks like it has that real personal sensibility that we always want in a especially a coming of age dramedy kind of movie. You just want it to feel personal and interesting, and coming from the creator and their perspective. So yeah, definitely this one is high on the list to see this year.
And the final trailer that we're going to be talking about is for a television show. We got our first official trailer for season 3 of The Pit. Now, we reviewed season 2 of The Pit earlier this year, and we are both huge fans of this show. We both love it very, very much. It is one of the more celebrated shows on television right now. The Emmys are in a few weeks. I'm sure this is going to take home a lot of Emmys, just like it did last year with its first season. And first of all, there was no announcement of this trailer even coming. It just came out of nowhere. I was just like, oh, okay. Like, my phone was blowing up. It's like the Pit trailer. And I'm like, okay. And then I watched it, and I really love the structure of this trailer. It's very brief. It's only about a minute and a half and everything. We get a glimpse of, this new day, and everybody's here, and Robbie's coming back, as assumed that he took his little leave at the end of season 2 that he had been talking about throughout the whole season. And it just looks very intense. It looks exhilarating. And I really like how the trailer was kind of structured like a horror movie. I was really impressed with the tone that this trailer was evoking. So I'm very fascinated to see how this season goes and everything. And, with a show like The Pit, you wonder if they're going to jump the shark at some point or if they're going to peak too early. And I do think that they are on the right track of still being great even this many years later. And it does feel refreshing to get a streaming show with multiple episodes coming back exactly a year after it leaves, not having to wait 5 years like we did with Stranger Things or Severance or all these other shows. Every single January, it's The Pit time, and I'm very excited to be back in the hospital with my favorite doctors. Very excited to see where everybody progressed in the months since season 2. So, yeah, I thought the trailer was great, and I can't wait for season 3. How did you feel about this trailer?
Definitely my first reaction was that it's edited like a horror movie, and, very appropriate. What's more horrific than the American medical system? So, yeah, definitely. I kind of like that they were leaning into that. It felt more of a, like, thriller vibe, and, I think most people are at least aware of The Pit. Many people have watched it. It's pretty popular, but, yeah, I think it was an involving trailer that could definitely bring someone in who is maybe not familiar with the show yet. And yeah, I think that we talked about season 2. I think that for as much as, having a season 1 that ends up being kind of a phenomenon, ends up being, super popular with awards and getting a ton of buzz and conversation, a season 2 is going to be very tricky. And on almost all counts, I really loved how they handled everything. I think they kind of doubled down on certain characters and exploring their journeys. They didn't try to top themselves by having some, wild tragic event the way that happened in the first season. So I'm really trusting the creators and everyone behind this show, because I think that it's, they've pulled off something that is kind of just a real anomaly in our current TV landscape. Like you said, a show that comes back every year, that it airs with this many episodes, I think 15 or so episodes per season. So it's on from January through April. So you get to kind of just like live with these characters week to week, in a way that a binge miniseries that comes out for 6 hours in one day and then everyone just kind of moves on. It just is able to be like a staple in our culture while it's on. And yeah, it feels cool that this trailer just dropped out of nowhere. We only wrapped up the last season a couple months ago, and it's time to go back to The Pit. So yeah, I'm excited, and I think that this is a good trailer and a good time to start generating buzz. And just remind everyone, like, that show you love is going to be back right on schedule.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Very excited to see everybody again, and hopefully season 3 will be when you finally say Santos is a cool character.
She's growing on me. It's okay.
I didn't appreciate the Santos slander during that pod. I'm like, that's my girl. Leave her alone.
I'm surprised you didn't mention that this trailer was like a horror movie, because Dr. Mohan was definitely absent.
Do not remind me of that. Please do not remind me of that. I'm very devastated that my girl is not back, but
yeah,
hey. Can't wait to see everybody. Robbie's hair looks shorter too, and then Dr. Landon's hair is longer, and then you can see like the 5 o'clock shadow. I'm like, oh, things are not looking good for our boy at home. Clearly,
yeah. And we're back to cold weather too. I think everyone was wearing jackets, and we're not in the summer anymore. So yeah, it'll be interesting. We will.
And is this going to take place during the night shift? Like, I'm a little confused.
It opened the way it opened a little bit. With I'm forgetting his name, Sean Hazy. Yeah, I'm forgetting the character's name, but it opened with him seemingly talking to the night shift. I was like, did they take my suggestion where I said it should be the first several hours are the night shift and then it shifts into the day shift? So I don't know. I don't know if we have any confirmation one way or the other. I'm sure I'm expected for them to be involved at some point, just like has happened on each of the other seasons.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I
Dr.
wonder if
Abbott is
we'll
his name, by the way.
Dr. Abbott. Yeah, I wonder if we'll get any clarity about that before it comes, or if they just surprise us and drop us in, and we'll see who we see.
Yep, we will see who we see.
All right, well, that concludes our weekly catch up, and with that, it's time to get into our double feature today. So we'll be kicking off with Tony, the second film from director Matt Johnson this year, which stars Dominic Sessa as world renowned chef Anthony Bourdain in his early glory days, just getting started working in a kitchen. So we'll be warming up with our non spoiler thoughts before serving the full platter of spoilers. So, Brian, what were your expectations going into Tony? Were you well versed with Anthony Bourdain prior to this? And would you say that this is another winner from Matt Johnson in 2026?
I was really excited for Tony, very excited walking into this. I admittedly am not super well versed with Anthony Bourdain. I've seen a couple of his shows. I was well aware of who he was. I remember when he passed away a few years ago and how much of a tragedy that was for many, many people. But I was excited for this movie because of the people involved. Matt Johnson directing it, Dominic Sessa starring, and admittedly, biopics are not my favorite, but I was really fascinated to know ahead of time that this was not going to be a conventional biopic where it was cradle to grave, kind of like a Wikipedia entry. I admire the fact that they chose to focus on one specific time period to show us the younger days of this prominent figure where we could see elements of who he became in his later years that we all knew him to be. So I was really excited for this. And I have to say that I absolutely loved Tony. This is one of my favorite films of 2026. Matt Johnson has done it again as if anyone could ever doubt him. And Dominic Sessa, I am so happy to see him in a good movie again. After his brilliant debut performance in The Holdovers, I'm like, this kid is a star. He needs to be in everything. People need to give him all these incredible opportunities. And admittedly, after The Holdovers, he was relegated to supporting roles in very middle-end movies. But then he has the opportunity to get his first lead-in role playing Anthony Bourdain, which I'm sure to him was a very overwhelming task. But I thought he did a beautiful job bringing him to life. His performance was so good. He had the wit and the charm and the cockiness that we loved from him in The Holdovers, but then he brings that here to essentially a new level. And then the cast surrounding him also does a phenomenal job. And I love a movie about cooking. I have said this many, many times. I cannot cook for my life, but if you have a movie where food is very prevalent, I am very much going to be locked in. And I really commend Matt Johnson for, again, choosing to not go the conventional biopic route and present us a slice of life coming of age story about someone finding their belonging and essentially the topic of found family being prevalent to this story. So anyone could have done a conventional biopic, a run-of-the-mill biopic of Anthony Bourdain, but Matt Johnson and his team said, no, we're not going to do that. We're instead going to focus on this one period, this one prevalent period of this figure, and bring to you a movie that anyone could enjoy, even if you're not well-versed with the world of Anthony Bourdain. So to me, this was a massive thumbs up, and I've seen it twice, and I loved it even more the second time. I'm hoping to catch it one more time before it leaves the theater. I really do think that this is one of my favorite films of the year, and this is probably the first time in maybe a long time, I cannot tell you the last time, where a director had two of their films in my top 10 of its respective years. So I'm a big fan of Tony. I thought this was fantastic. So going to you, were you well-rounded with Anthony Bourdain going into this film? What were your expectations, and how did you feel about it overall?
I had largely the same experience as you going into this. Knew of Anthony Bourdain, but was never, greatly into any of his shows or his writings or anything. But like he was a larger than life person. I think just about everyone was at least familiar with him tangentially. So yeah, didn't have any particular connection to that. I was a Matt Johnson fan. I think mostly won me over with Blackberry. Absolutely loved that movie. And then loved Nirvana this year as well. So, and I think going into this, I was hopeful for it mostly because of Blackberry. Like Nirvana is fantastic, but that's kind of its own thing. So it definitely wasn't going to have necessarily the same energy or structure or anything as that one. So I think what I loved so much about Blackberry was that it was in that time when there were like several product-based movies coming out. There was Air and there was Tetris, and Blackberry was like far and away my favorite of all of them. And I, realized at some point it was like, I think I liked it because that was, that one ultimately was about a failed product. It was about all of these people working towards this thing that ultimately, as we knew, as history would play out, didn't really work. And so I think there was something more interesting there when you're gonna tell a real life story, for there to be some element of failure or struggle and not have everything be sugar coated. So I was interested here because now you're dealing with a real life person who has sadly passed away, but how do you honor them? How do you be honest about them? And so yeah, I think it was a brilliant decision to set the movie here, that we get one summer that was significant in his life, so much better than trying to do a cradle to grave biopic, which we've seen plenty of examples of those go from just mid to horribly wrong. So I think this is such a better approach. Like you said, it's a coming of age movie. It kind of, honestly, I'm curious to know how like super diehard Anthony Bourdain fans might feel about it, because I almost feel like you don't even have to know that it's about Anthony Bourdain. Like, it could have just been an original story, or just based on wanting to explore this time and this industry and stuff. And so yeah, I think that it really managed to like maintain the edge, and they do not shy away from Tony being an unlikable person at this stage in his life. And I think on he was pretty honest about having a prickly personality and having issues throughout his life. So that's all there. They don't sand any of that over. And they also kind of explore the world that he's diving into, with all of its wild swings up and down, and all of the high highs that can come from it and the low lows. But it also, like, they still managed to make it like a great hang. Like, this movie was just like a delight to watch. It was just so, it's really summery, we're like up in Cape Cod, and you're just getting, it's a very experiential movie. You're just kind of enjoying like being in these different rooms and meeting these interesting people. You're just kind of along for the ride with Tony, while also, him also being this interesting prickly character who's kind of an asshole, but also just getting started in life, just figuring himself out. So yeah, I think this was a major success. It's also in my top 10 of the year so far. Yeah, I think that Matt Johnson is definitely 2 for 2.
And with that, let's get into spoiler territory. So if you haven't watched Tony, please go watch it. Go check it out. But do not watch this movie on an empty stomach. Do not go into this movie watching it on an empty stomach, because
you'll want to grab some seafood afterwards.
Absolutely. If I wish that I lived in an area where seafood was so easily accessible, because oh my God, so many of the dishes here look defined, and we'll talk about that momentarily.
You can get to the Jersey Shore pretty easily, can't you? A lot of good stuff there.
But it's not the same. Nothing matches Cape Cod when it comes to seafood and everything. Cape Cod really is where it's at, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's get into spoiler territory for Tony. So I think we should start off by talking about the decision to set it during this one period, as opposed to doing a cradle to grave biopic and everything. So, we kind of brushed upon it a little bit in our initial thoughts, but for you, like, you could further analyze your thoughts on it. So, like, does this movie make you wish that we get more biopics like this? Because my thing is, with a biopic, you can absolutely make a really good cradle to grave biopic, but you need a really good script, good direction, and good performances. And unfortunately, most of the biopics that we get now are very mid to not very good, as you said. But this one just felt so refreshing, and it would have been interesting to see if they had done a cradle to grave biopic of Anthony Bourdain, because when the movie was announced, I was under the impression that that's what they were going to do. But then I'm like, if Dominic Sessa is the only person attached to play Anthony Bourdain, we're not going to see him play Anthony Bourdain when he's in his 40s and everything. That just wouldn't make any sense.
23-year-old kid in age makeup or something.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not to say that they haven't done that before. They've done that many times. But I'm just like, there's no way that that's going to work. So, kind of elaborate your opinion on the decision to set it in this period. And as someone who, like me, isn't as well versed with Anthony Bourdain, why do you think that this was the perfect way to approach this story?
I just think it's very smart. I think that the movie opens up with a quote. I didn't write down the exact wording of it, but something about, in front of me. Yeah, go ahead.
I was, to be frank, a spoiled, miserable, narcissistic, self-destructive, and thoughtless young lout, and badly in need of a good ass kicking.
There you go. And so I think it's very smart to open with that's Anthony in his own words, like his own assessment of who he was at this time in his life. And so I think it's interesting to pluck that time that was very formative. It did kind of send him on the path of where he would go later in life when we all got to know him. But you have some distance. You kind of the issue you mentioned a few of the issues with cradle to grave biopics of the writing and the acting and everything. I think a major issue that gets in the way is the idea of like access and a tone, and how much you're gonna go warts and all, or how much you're gonna go like just hagiographic. We love this person and they're the best ever. So that's for me, that's kind of the dance that usually does not go so well for these kinds of movies. So when you have this person who, again, is beloved, but also publicly had problems, and you take some distance and just go to like this important time in their lives, I think that's so smart, because you can have a little bit more honesty, and you can have the sense that, we know as an audience now, by opening with that quote, that he got older and matured out of this, and things that he learned here changed him for life. But you can kind of forgive his mistakes in a way that, if we wanted to see him at the very end of his life, obviously it would be a touchier subject. It would be a little bit harder to navigate that emotionally and everything. So yeah, I just think it's smart. I think that it's and like I said in the opening, it's just like a great setting. It just, everything looks beautiful. It's very fun. It's a lot of, if you're gonna have to be stuck anywhere, like Cape Cod seems like a pretty good place. So just the gorgeous shots of the beach and all of the cramped feeling of the kitchen, that is just like rife for drama and learning experiences. So yeah, I just think it's a really smart decision that totally pays off, and you get the sense of the person more so than a whole just touching on these little bits throughout their whole life.
Yeah, I completely echo everything that you said. And I really appreciate, too, that this movie focused so much on Tony as a person as opposed to the figure that he ended up becoming later in his life. And, like, the movie obviously builds up to that towards the tail end, but that's not the primary focus of this story, which, again, I really commend Matt Johnson for doing. And I think that, honestly, like, if Matt Johnson is directed a biographical film, there's like 100% chance that it honestly is going to be good. Like Blackberry and this showcase that he is a guy that knows how to direct a biographical film, and I do think that I like Blackberry a bit more than this. I love both of them equally, and Tony on paper is more up my alley as the coming of age fan that I am. But Blackberry, I really liked the way that it handled the tone and the grit of it all. And then this movie, kind of similar. It kind of strips back the grit, and it's very beautiful and poignant, and just the setting of Cape Cod and in the 70s too. I really like a movie that's set in the 70s and the vibe of it all. I just think that, again, they could have done something completely generic. And I know that for some people that have watched this, they have said that it is very run-of-the-mill biographical drama, coming of age, which, yes, the tropes that you see in these films are definitely present in here, absolutely. But what I really appreciate about how Matt Johnson handles them is that he absolutely recognizes that this may be a bit of a conventional movie, but he opted to do something different, and for that, I completely respect his take. And I love that opening quote in the movie. It perfectly sets up the vibe of Tony in the movie. And yeah, from the opening minutes, we know that Tony is a bit of an unlikable guy, and if there's anyone that could play unlikable but also likable simultaneously really well, it's Dominic Sessa.
Yeah, and I think between this and Blackberry, you kind of get, just in terms of figuring out what Matt Johnson is interested in. Like, I think you're both getting these stories of like young men with a lot of ambition and drive and talent, but not like necessarily directing it in the right places or not knowing where to direct it yet. For Tony, he's just starting out his young adult life. So yeah, I think that's interesting, and I'm sure that Matt Johnson probably relates to that as a filmmaker. That's probably a lot of what the process of getting a movie made and creating feels like to him. So yeah, I think it's interesting, like in the arc of his career as well. It kind of makes total sense, even though it's not the most intuitive when you just hear Matt Johnson, Anthony Bourdain movie. But I think he really made it his own.
Yeah, and in the opening minutes, to kind of set up a bit of the story in this film. So we meet Tony. He is a student at Vassar College in 1975, and he has this huge aspiration to become a writer. He applies for this writing fellowship that would hopefully send him to New York City, but he ends up lying to his family and to other people, saying that he got the fellowship. And when he ends up learning that he didn't get it, he, on a impulse, travels to Provincetown to go see his crush, Nancy, who's played in this film by the absolutely breathtakingly beautiful Amelia Jones. Oh my God, so much radiance in one person. She is, first of all, she is so lovely in this movie. I really liked her performance a lot, and I really loved her chemistry too with Dominic Sessa. I thought they worked off each other really well. But
She's also great on Task.
Yeah, loved her on Task as well. I love the first interaction that they have at the bar and everything. And then he walks away. He's like, "Goodbye, young lady. I'm older than you. Goodbye, old lady." Just Dominic Sessa delivering that. Let me ask you this before getting more into the plot and everything. Were you able to separate his performance from the holdovers in this? Because there are a lot of people that are like, "Oh, he's just doing the holdovers thing again." But I mean, yes, there's elements of his performance in that and in this, but I don't think it's like an entire replica of that performance.
I'm not. Don't kill me, but I'm not super like holdovers hive. I saw it once when it came out, and I liked it, and it was not a huge movie for me. The way that was 2023 when there was that was just a huge movie year for me for other things. You gotta
give it another watch.
Yeah, Christmas I liked it.
It might be time to rewatch it.
Yeah, I can't watch it now. It's still summer. That's got to be a winter movie.
Yeah,
so,
unfortunately, Christmas in July is already passed.
True, yeah. So that I mean, for me personally, that doesn't like weigh too heavy in my mind. I know that he was very good in that, and great performance, very good movie. So I'm not too, and I think I've seen every other movie he's done except for the Now You See Me one, because I saw Toe and that Christmas movie that he was into, which they were smaller parts in mid-tier movies and stuff, but so yeah, I don't feel too overly connected to his screen persona at this point. I guess it is kind of a similar character, that kind of like, wisecracking young kid who kind of thinks he has it figured out. But to me, it's a different enough movie. And I, from what I've seen so far, he's a versatile enough actor to pull off either one and make it feel different. So yeah, he totally worked for me in this. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But he ends up going to Provincetown because he wants to see Nancy. And I love the sequence of events of like on the boat. I like the needle drop that is playing, and I like the shots of him walking through the town. And I love how hilarious it is. He just has a picture of her that he takes out of the yearbook and he's like showing it to people. Like he's like, "Oh, have you seen this girl?" It's like, why are you asking people if they've seen this girl? I think that was a really, really funny thing and everything.
The 70s, you just like you didn't have Facebook to go track somebody down.
Yeah, so all you had was just a yearbook photo to go off. But he sees that she is now dating some person that she works with at a pizza shop, and then he goes to drink it up and everything, and he is crazy eating all these oysters, and he is so rude to the waitress and bartender, and then he gets kicked out of this restaurant called The Flagship, which is very pivotal to the story, and he is robbed by Sal, one of the restaurant's chefs. And then the story
takes his wallet, and then when Chef walks over, said, "I think he got robbed."
Yep. And then he tries to find a way of getting home, but he is short of money. So then he goes to the restaurant and asks for a place to stay. And he's like, "I need a job." And he lies about having previous restaurant experience. And then that's when the story kicks into high gear.
Yeah, I think this was all pretty well constructed. You definitely get the idea that, like has been established, he's just kind of a little shit. Like he's just kind of again, he can't come to terms with the fact that he didn't get this fellowship. He can't tell his family. He can't tell any of the people because it would just, be a crash to his ego. And so, yeah, the way that he just will lie about things, big and small, just to impress or just to like get through to the next interaction or whatever it is. I think that all, it all comes across really, really, really well. And so, yeah, and yeah, like I said, like not pulling any punches on, like he's very rude and aggressive with that bartender, and doesn't try to just make him all cutesy about it. Like he's not a very likable guy, and so he's definitely brought down to rock bottom, getting thrown out of the bar, sleeping on the street for a night, and then once Chef, played by Antonio Banderas, houses him on his hammock for a night and gives him this opportunity. You're at this point, you just want to see if he's, got any redeeming qualities and how he's going to proceed from here with the opportunity that he's given.
Mm-hmm. And the dynamic between Tony and Chef, whose name is not revealed at all in the movie, which I think is a really funny touch and everything. And I didn't realize that until I first saw the movie, and in the credits he was just credited Chef. I'm like, oh yeah, they didn't say his name at all. Fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like implied to be like a real guy, like a famous chef or something. But throughout the movie you don't know until I guess at the very end they show like some real pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
But
So, like, that's one of the pivotal elements of this movie. And obviously, one of the things that I really loved about this movie was how it handled the relationships in Tony's life. And there's many to go through, but I would say this is definitely the pivotal one of the entire story and everything. The kind of mentor taking in someone and under their wing and teaching them the ways of not only what they do professionally, but also kind of the ways of life and how to mature and grow up. And I really adore the dynamic between the two of them. And I also love how we know that Tony is a bit of a complicated character and everything, like him being, a little shit and everything, conniving and a little mischievous and what have you. But Chef isn't exactly someone who has his acts together too. There's a bit of underneath the surface with him too. And I really loved how they explored his storyline here. And I think that when someone's coming of age, you think about the relationships that help shape you as a person, whether it's for the good or for the bad. And I think that the dynamic between these two characters was very beautifully handled. And it's something that could have been handled very differently in the hands of someone else. But I love that Matt Johnson was able to give us a reason to care about Chef. He wasn't just there as a mentor character. He wasn't just there for the heck of it. There was actually a purpose for him being involved in this story. And the sequences in the kitchen where you have all this back and forth with the fellow chefs and then this bartender and the patrons and everything. I really loved how all that was constructed, and the claustrophobicness in the kitchen. I don't know how they shot the kitchen sequences. Quite frankly, I haven't really looked into it. I saw one photo where it looked like they actually went into a real kitchen, but then there was another image that I saw where it looked like it was a set that was built. But I know they did shoot this on location in Provincetown. I know that they were very adamant about doing that, which is great. I love that they were able to pull that off. But the kitchen dynamic was a really fascinating element of the story that I thought added a lot of great comedy to it, a lot of great heart as well. And it also added a lot of intensity that, made me think right away of something like The Bear, where the sequences in the kitchen were very fast-paced, high-octane, a bit rapid with it when it comes to the editing, and the dynamic between everyone all coming together was something that you could tell, even if they weren't embracing Tony right away, they have a sense of family, and they were eventually welcoming Tony into that family. So I really loved that dynamic. So for you, when it came to the kitchen of it all, how did you feel about the handling of that?
Yeah, agree with everything you said, and I think that going back to his relationship with Chef and everything, I think that the structure of the script really does so much to augment that, to accentuate it, because I really like how it kind of flips at some point from his initiation in the kitchen. He's kind of tied at the hip to Sal, to Leo Woodall's character, who is, he is this like kind of like charismatic, but again, problematic, like dirtbag kind of guy who is, this is a great duo of performances from Leo Woodall this year between this and Tuner. Like, he's just like absolutely incredible, I think.
One of the best line deliveries of the year comes from him. Oh, how's it going? Oh!
Yeah, what did he had a few things in there, but he can't go to a party alone, just like giving creepy lone rapist kind of thing. And yeah, just I kind of like that idea of, he's sort of the thing that really gets him into like, oh, I could work in this kitchen for the summer. Like, this is kind of fun. This is, he's showing him, he's taking him to parties and showing him how to flirt with girls. And he's, they're drinking all the time. There, he's introducing him to coke to keep him awake in the kitchen and everything when they're, after they're out partying all night. So that's the kind of like, that's him, and maybe kind of introducing one side of Tony for the rest of his life, kind of that sense of the double-edged sword of like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I'm just kind of enjoying my life and not take anything too seriously. And then that sort of devolves a little bit, and Sal keeps getting a little bit more reckless, a little bit more angry, and kind everything kind of switches on a dime when they have that scene in the kitchen where it just blows up and Sal is late to work, and then he gets frustrated and punches Chef in the face, and so that's like kind of a huge turning point for the movie because it's a moment for Chef calling him the Sin Eater and explaining later on that he sees him as someone who like absorbs darkness in order for the rest of us to live in light. And does you ask yourself, is Tony feeling that way about himself later on in his life, things like that. But then I really like that switch of like, then Sal kind of like recedes from the movie a little bit, and Chef is a bit more prominent, and now it's kind of like, okay, you've seen the sort of like fun and dangerous side of things, and like this is how you actually make this a sustainable life. This is how you actually nurture things. This is how you put time and care into your work and your job and everything. And the scene that is so great of him bringing him to the restaurant on their off day and like distilling seawater in order to get the salt to put in their salt shakers, and using fresh tomatoes to make their own ketchup. And it's like, those are little touches that in a little shack on a boardwalk somewhere where they only make 4 dishes, like you don't need to have that kind of attention to detail. But the fact that Chef takes that much pride in what he does, I think that's just a very smart way to kind of show Tony going through a progression of different ways to approach life and to how he wants to live, how he wants to bring that into his work, and it keeps the chef relationship from feeling like a super basic, like just mentor mentee kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It gives it enough space for him to just be in the background and then sort of step forward when Tony needs him, kind of. So yeah, I think that's all just brilliantly handled, and I think that Leo Woodall and Antonio Banderas are just so good in this role. Like, it helps. It could have been just a normal run-of-the-mill mentor relationship, and Antonio Banderas would kill it anyway. It's just so good to see him in this kind of part. So yeah, I think it was all really well done.
Yeah, the everything with the kitchen I thought was handled really well. You brought up Antonio Banderas, you brought up Leo Woodall, but also shout out to Stavros.
Yes,
as the so perfect comic relief to this. Like, he was so funny in this, and yeah,
after Sal punches Chef and they're like talking about it later, he's like, "I'm glad I didn't have to kill a man today."
I loved him very much in this. I really adored the kitchen dynamic, and I just love how the relationship between Chef and Tony grows in this moment and everything. And you brought up that little moment where they go to the restaurant on a day where the restaurant's closed and they're doing the stuff with the salt shaker and the ketchup, which I really adore. But there's other moments too outside of the kitchen between the two of them that I love, like when they go to church. That sequence where they're out in the ocean, like at nighttime, and they catch the
sniper run, yeah,
and I adore that so much. I love the quiet, intimate moments like that, as opposed to the chaotic energy in the kitchen, which I also love. But I adored when we took a pause from that and focused again on the characters. This movie was about its characters. It wasn't about the food that they were cooking or the kitchen that they were making the food in or the summer that was surrounding them or the location that had all of this stuff. It was about the characters and why we care about them and why we're so invested in their journeys. So everything regarding Chef and Sal, beautifully constructed. Really, really admired that. And then with the kitchen stuff too, when everything goes to shit in the third act, I was on the edge of my seat. I was so devastated during that entire sequence because seeing Chef pretty much lose everything, his hard work after believing in Tony, and Tony's like, we have this great idea to make this special lobster. What is it?
Lobster thermidor, I think.
Lobster thermidor as like a special for one Friday and everything. And that this is a success. And then this fire happens. And that sequence, oh man, that was hard to watch. Not going to lie. I felt bad for my boy Chef.
Yeah, yeah, it says a lot that you cared enough about them and their journey and their relationship, and just Chef and everything he had, taken to build that restaurant over the years, and and you're rooting for Tony to impress Nancy at that point, and yeah, I think that it definitely works. It was it was a moment that again, it's kind of a third act of the movie kind of thing that has to happen, but
Yeah.
it felt everything was so built up until then that it felt appropriately devastating. And then I think even more so the kind of fallout from that when I think at some point he kind of admits to both Nancy and Chef that he's been lying to both of them this whole summer. That he to Chef that he never worked in a kitchen, and to Nancy that he's not really working on the fellowship. And he has that moment with, I think, when he and Chef are talking on the beach of like just reflexively saying like, I don't want to work in a fucking kitchen my whole life, and kind of just like
Yeah, he was
immediately
like, I was
like,
gonna offer you a job, and he's like, but I'm going back to school in September. I
yep.
can't be a chef full time.
Yeah, just immediately cutting down, everything that what Chef has dedicated his life towards, and what he's been kind of trying to teach him throughout this summer, whether he applies that to directly working in a kitchen or not. But I think Chef says to him like, you can be anything you want to be, but you're nothing right now. Like you're just not you don't get it. You're not applying yourself to anything meaningful in your life. And so yeah, I think it's appropriately cutting everyone down a peg. It's appropriately like resetting everyone, and having them accomplish just enough, and that just to lose it. And that's where Sal gets a little bit involved again. They put on a clam bake on the beach, quote
Not
unquote, for
originally
charity.
though. Originally they were gonna
Yeah.
take money from Chef.
Yes, right. They were gonna rob him first, yeah. But he seems to have left with the money, which yeah, I think that's an interesting wrinkle too. Like it's not very linear, where he's just had this great journey and learned all this stuff, and he's a better person now. Like he's still completely willing to do something so heinous. And but then yeah, the fact that the other people from the restaurant come to help them with this clam bake, that yeah, they're advertising is for charity, like it's to rebuild the restaurant, but Sal has no intention of sharing the money. And then just a kind of a quiet conclusion there, where Chef shows up to the clam bake, and they have this interaction. Tells him he should rebrand as Anthony instead of Tony, which is a funny little. It's kind of like Facebook. Drop the. It's cleaner.
Yeah, as in, and he also brings up that only his mother calls him
Right.
Anthony, played by the wonderful Dagmara. I don't know how to pronounce her last name ever.
It's a tough last name. Yeah.
Mrs. Patrick Wilson.
Yes, her and Rich Sommer as his dad.
I love
almost
Rich
wanted
Sommer
more of
so
both
much.
of them. They were so good.
He's one of my favorite character actors. Yeah, and he wasn't even in Devil Wears Prada 2 this year, so it was nice to see him in something
Right.
this year.
Yeah, I thought they were. Yeah, just that scene at the top with his family. You could, like, it was for having such little screen time. You got so much from them, and how
Love the moment where he punches the poster in the wall, and then his brother's like, "Do you want to go get ice cream?"
that's such a, like, coming home to your family after college kind of thing of like you're dealing with all these angsty troubles,
I
and
feel
your
like
parents
that
are just like
happened.
happy
I
to see
feel
you.
like that happened to me one time. I was just annoyed, and my mom's like, "Do you want to go get ice cream, me and Dad?" And I'm like, "No, leave me alone."
I wouldn't
to
say no to
grieve."
ice cream ever. Doesn't matter what mood I'm in. Ice cream's always a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Um,
and then let's talk about the dynamic between Tony and Nancy. Admittedly, I wasn't as high on this stuff as I was with Tony and Chef. And I will say this, like I said before, I do think that Amelia Jones is very, very good in this role. She's so radiant, so lovely, and just adds such a lovely charm to her portrayal of Nancy. And I think they have great chemistry with one another. What I will say about this, and this kind of leads into one of my nitpicks with the movie, I do think that for the most part, when they are on screen together, it is very, very good. I like the sequences with them together. But then towards the tail end of their dynamic, where, the fire at the restaurant already happens, and then they just go back to Nancy's place and they're making out, and she's about to have sex with him, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I lied to you," and I'm like, "Dude, like, awful." I thought that was just
that he lied, or that he told the truth in that moment.
in the moment. I'm like,
You wanted to just have sex with her under
well,
coercion
no, it's
of
just
lying
like
to her
the
all
way it
summer?
was handled. I thought was very rushed.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it was I thought they could have built it out a little bit more, but then it's like, oh, if you built it out, then there's like way too much more of the movie. So I guess
Yeah.
for
It did
me,
just feel like she's gonna have sex with me, so I have to come clean now
yeah,
to
I
not
guess
be
for
like a
me,
total
I
jerk.
thought
Yeah.
that like again, for the most part, the dynamic between the two of them was very good. I was very invested when both of them were on screen together. But I do think that it ultimately felt a little rushed towards the tail end of this arc. That's just my 2 cents on it. It was a very brief little nitpick, but I would love to get your take on the whole Tony and Nancy dynamic. I do you think that she comes off as just a conventional love interest, or do you think there's more to that character than meets the eye?
Yeah, I think that I do think I like their rapport together. Like I think that they have good chemistry and a good dynamic and everything. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed watching their scenes. Yeah, I think that maybe she doesn't quite not quite a traditional love interest or anything where she's just like a pretty face to be there, but she is a little bit of just like a sounding board for where he's at any given moment. But
Hmm.
I kind of like the dynamic of, he's just so dead set on lying to her whenever he has to, on doing whatever he can to be like the most impressive that he can make himself. And I do kind of like the sense that from the characterization we do get of her, like she's just kind of a chill person who, had he just said like, yeah, I'm didn't get that fellowship. I don't really know what I'm going to do. I just came here and I'm working in a kitchen. Like you kind of get the sense that she would have been totally fine with that, and not, the fact that he's like sort of prejudging himself so much in relation to her is she is kind of defined in juxtaposition of him. But to me, it's ultimately a movie about him, and I don't think she was reduced or any way to just a love interest. But and
Right.
I kind of think that one of my favorite moments in the movie come out of I think it's one of their conversations where at this point he's lying to her about what he's been doing all summer. He's trying to convince her that he actually did get that fellowship, and he's been working, just happens to be located here instead of in New York. And so he's talking to her about what he's doing all day while he's here. And in his explanation, he's like describing this very solitary writerly life where he's like, he eats breakfast and then he writes for hours, and he goes and takes a solo walk on the beach. And
Hmm.
it's so interesting to see like his idea of what like this great man writer would be like. And then you're getting, as he's telling this, you're getting shots of what he's actually doing all day. And he's in the kitchen with all of the people. He's out on the boat, fishing out fresh seafood, and he's running around the island and the beach with the other friends from the kitchen. Like the idea that he's actually having the experience of what is eventually going to make him a great writer. The fact that he's out here living his life and seeing new things and talking to interesting people, and like that is actually what makes you a great writer, a great communicator, and not this pretentious idea he has in his head of like I'm just holed up in my room with my typewriter and going to work at it. Like that, to me, that's just the best. And that's that's an example of how he's lying to her and he's lying to himself, and he's willing to lie to anybody. But that, it just perfectly highlights the difference in who he thinks he needs to be versus becoming who he actually is.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then I guess like are there any other things that you want to highlight and everything? Like I love the last scene of the movie. I love the last few minutes of the film where he goes back to New York or New Jersey, excuse me, reunites with his family, and then we see him going on an interview and everything, and we think like, oh, it's for something particular, maybe a job at a kitchen, but he has this interview with the Culinary Institute of America, which at first, when he finds out about the school, which is abbreviated as the CIA, he's like, oh, you
CIA.
were in the CIA?
The guys who killed Kennedy.
The guys who killed Kennedy.
Yeah, it's cool, yeah, and I think, yeah, and again, that's kind of a traditional movie button on it and everything, but it totally made sense, and it was built up enough. And I like that we get the juxtaposition of the interview we see in the beginning where he's applying for the fellowship versus now, and he's just so much more honest. He's just so much more willing to say like, yeah, I worked in this kind of shitty kitchen for a summer, but it meant a lot to me. And he's not embellishing himself or talking himself up in a way that's out of turn. And then we see he has a letter of recommendation from Chef, who is carry some weight, I'm sure. So, yeah, I think it's a it's kind of a movie ending. Him ending by saying, I'm Anthony Bourdain. But it all worked for me. I think the movie leading up to it is grounded enough to warrant some flourishes like that, and then it pays off for me.
Absolutely. And just a few things that I want to highlight. I mean, we've talked about the performances. They're all great. Dominic Sessa is awesome. Antonio Banderas is great. Leah Woodall is wonderful. I really like the imagery from Michael Bauman, who just won, was nominated for the Oscar for One Battle After Another. So very cool to see him get, another project under his belt, especially so soon after working with, the greatest living filmmaker of all time. And then the music by Jay McCarroll, as in of Jay of Nirvana the band. Love the score. Love the score. So poignant, so heartfelt. Really, really charming score, and very different from the Nirvana score, quite frankly. It was really cool to see Jay do something a bit more serious with his music abilities. And yeah, I think that those are two major things that people definitely should highlight, especially the score. I think the score is a really underappreciated element of the film.
Yeah, totally agree. And yeah, I think, we've talked about acting predictions recently. I would love if Antonio Banderas got some recognition
I
somewhere.
agree.
I think that I've just like missed him. Like he's not had, too many major roles in recent years. Something, meaty like this, but also that he can just kind of bring his like effortless gravitas to. I just think he was just so wonderful.
Although there are
But
just
as is
times
everybody.
where he speaks and I close my eyes and I'm just picturing him saying all these things as Puss in
Puss in
Boots.
Boots.
Like it's just so hard for me to not do that, but he is a great
Yeah.
actor and
As it
everything.
happens when you're iconic.
Yeah, and I mean yeah, the whole sequence where he got punched in the face. I'm like, you don't punch Puss in Boots. Are you nuts? Like, what are you trying to do? But like, I'm trying to think of the last thing I saw him in. It had to have been Baby Girl, right?
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
Baby Girl might have been the last thing that he was in, and he was fucking good in Baby Girl. He was really good in
He
that
was,
movie.
yeah. Oh, he was in Paddington and Peru for the same year.
Haven't seen.
But yeah, it's fine. And he has just a like supporting role in that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, definitely wanna see him do more stuff like this for sure.
But yeah,
Um,
everyone was great, and A24 has such a stacked filmography this year and everything. So many
mhm.
films that they've put out throughout this year, and so many more coming. It just bumps me out that this is kind of gonna be kind of
Yeah.
relegated. Like I feel like not many people are going to be talking about this, and I know that it's done well critically and everything, and it's done well for like the limited release that it had a few weeks ago. But I just feel like it's gonna get buried underneath all these other A24 films. Like, we have Primetime coming out soon. We just had The Invite come out. We had the drama earlier this year. There's so many films that A24 is putting out, and listen, a lot of them are great. But this is one that also deserves to get a lot of attention too. And I'm not saying it has to be an awards contender or anything, but I just hope that when 2026 wraps up and people look back on the year of film, I really hope people don't forget about Tony.
Yeah, I agree. It is the kind of like somewhat understated movie that you're not going to see and be like that's the greatest movie of the year, best movie of my life, but it's just so everything is there. Everything is so it's solid, it's enjoyable, it's a little bit thought provoking. And I am curious for, hardcore Anthony Bourdain fans how they feel about it, but I can't imagine being dissatisfied with it. I think that it's like we talked about, it's respectful, but it's also honest. And yeah, I just think that this is it's a tough thing to pull off, doing any sort of biopic, and I just think it did it with flying colors.
Couldn't agree more. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with Tony before we give our final ratings?
No, I think that covers it. What was your rating for this?
I gave this a very high 4.5 out of 5.
Nice. I went 4.5, 4 stars out of 5.
Damn.
But sorry, I didn't mean to fake you out there. But again, very strong. If it was out of 10, it would be an 8.5.
That's good enough for me. All right. Well, our feast has finished, and now we're getting into our dessert for today's episode. Jane Schoenbrun's third film, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. Since premiering at this year's Cannes Film Festival, it has been critically lauded and further cements Schoenbrun as one of the industry's most exciting voices. Starring Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson, we're about to share where we land on the buzzy title. First, we're going to give our non-spoiler thoughts before segueing into all spoilers. So, Veronica, what was your hype level going into Camp Miasma, and did you walk out of it singing its praises?
Yeah, I had before seeing it. I saw the TV Glow, which saw in theaters when it came out. I really liked that movie, but I also felt kind of at a remove from it. I felt like it was, a very interesting sort of thought exercise, but I didn't necessarily enjoy the experience of watching it. But that one on a second watch, it clicked a lot more for me. Once I saw where it was going and knew what it was doing, I could vibe with that movie a lot more. And so then in turn I was more excited for this one. And the idea of it being slasher based. I'm a horror girl, but slasher is not necessarily my subgenre. But I'm definitely familiar with it enough to get the inside jokes and the references and stuff. That's all really fun, and that's what Jane is so fucking good at. Like just the ephemera around movie culture and what that means to us as fans and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely was looking forward to all of that. I did see this a while ago in like a test screening, so it had been many months since I had seen it. And I had sort of a similar feeling as with I saw the TV Glow. I was like, I liked it, but I kind of felt like I had some questions lingering in my mind, and just felt like I could use a second watch of it. So yeah, my most recent watch in the last 2 weeks or so, same experience. It clicked much more for me on the second time around. And I think it's cool that Jane is that kind of filmmaker that rewards a second watch, and maybe changes for you. Things are a little, leave some things a little abstract for your own interpretation. But this one, I think, even more so than TV Glow, I think this one is just more fun. It's just kind of more campy, no pun intended. More, has more comedy to it. And I think that the two central performances from Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson are so great. I think that they are both really brilliant. They know exactly what kind of movie they're in. And it walks that fine line of, satirizing something in a really over the top way, but also really tapping into something genuinely emotional and personal to Jane and to the actors. And so yeah, I think that it's a thorny movie. It's not for everybody. But if you like Jane's previous work, and if you're interested in the slasher genre at all, if you're interested in explorations of queer sexuality, I think that is all there in spades, and the brew of it all together, I think it worked even better for me on a second round, and I ended up really liking the movie.
Yeah, this was also one of my most anticipated films of the year. I saw the TV Glow was my favorite film of 2024. Like you, it took me a while to get on that film's wavelength, and once I did, I became such a fan of it. It's one of my favorite films of the 2020s, and it immediately got me into becoming a fan of Jane Schoenbrun's work. Now, admittedly, I still haven't seen their first film, We're All Going to the World's Fair. I've been wanting to watch it. I heard
I still don't. I don't like that one.
that's what a lot of people seem to say, is that they're not as high on that one. I feel like TV Glow, I don't know anyone that likes TV Glow less than World's Fair. I don't really see
Yeah.
anyone.
I mean, it's also very like first movie. It's very low budget. And,
Yeah. I'd
so.
be interested to see where I land on it when I eventually check it out. But I've also heard that it's like such a bleak watch, and sometimes I'm not in the mood for anything super bleak, so I really have to be in the right headspace when watching that. But I saw the TV Glow is fucking brilliant across the board, so I was very excited to see what they were going to do for their follow-up. And when it was announced that it was going to be a bit of a tribute to the slasher genre and be a bit more comedic, I was very fascinated to see such a different side of Jane that we didn't get in TV Glow. And then you have these two incredible actors headlining the film. Gillian Anderson is a favorite amongst many people. She's a longtime veteran. She's been working in the industry for many, many years in film and on television and on stage. So she is a favorite. And then Hannah Einbinder is still a relatively newcomer to this space. She does her stand-up comedy, but Hacks is what got her on the map. And this is the first role that she's done after Hacks finished its run. So I was really excited to see what she was going to do in a film as the lead with this material. And I am not a big horror guy, admittedly. I'm hot and cold on the genre. But when there is one that comes out that is worth watching, I will go see it. And with the talent involved, I was really, really excited for this. And like with Tony, this is another one of my favorite films of the year. I've had the pleasure of watching it twice. I first watched it at New Fest Pride on the first day of Pride. It was the closing night film. There was a Q&A afterwards with Jane, Hannah, and Jack Haven, who plays Little Death. And I mean, that was a very special night for me for many reasons, and I won't get too much into it because then we'll be here for 7 hours. And I just want to say that I met Hannah and I told her how much I loved her, and then we were both emotional, and I was crying on the subway. But anyway, the movie itself is pretty spectacular across the board. It's bloody, it's gory, it's hilarious, it's absurd. It pokes fun at the horror genre, the slashers. It does a lot of really creative things filmmaking-wise that I really, really commend, especially for a film that doesn't have the highest of budgets. Watching movies like this makes me go, wow, a movie that has, you know, a relatively smaller budget compared to all these blockbusters that come out, you can really create art with the tiniest budget. And the things that they do here, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was so blown away. But yeah, what it has to say about sexuality and, you know, identity and finding yourself. I love that Jane explored those themes while still presenting a really fun, entertaining romp. But it also didn't shy away from the stories that they want to tell and the messages that they want to convey that a lot of movies don't touch upon. And, you know, you could tell that this was also such a personal project for them. And I really commend the fact that this movie was that kind of project. It was more than just a deconstruction of the slasher genre. It was, you know, a beautiful exploration of how one is to embrace their identity. And there were moments in this that made me laugh so hard, but then there were also moments that really moved me emotionally, and I was very impressed. And the more I sit with this movie, the more I love it. I still think that TV Glow is a bit better than this. TV Glow just really connected with me on a different level than this, but I think that this is a great follow-up to that film, and once again, it reminds us that Jane Schoenbrun is one of the most exciting filmmakers in the industry right now.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Should we get into some of the plot specifics?
Let's get into it.
All right, so open up with, I love the opening of this movie, the opening sort of montage of this, the Camp Miasma franchise.
Best opening credits of the year.
So good. And we're getting all of the, you know, the announcement of the first movie and how it's like a big hit. But then all of the sort of minutia of the merch and the spinoffs and the, you know, little ways that this series has been worked into pop culture. And it's sort of dipping in credibility, and it's you know, in its 15th DVD straight to video iteration or whatever. So yeah, all of that was just really funny and really on the nose, because like I said, I think that between TV Glow and this, Jane Schoenbrun just has like such an eye for like the very specifics of how we engage with media and how that sort of informs our own identity. So yeah, you're just getting a sort of really funny take of that right off the bat. And then yeah, we're meeting Chris, Hannah Einbinder's character, who is a successful recent writer-director who had some success with her recent feature. And so she's on the phone with her partner, explaining that she's going to meet Billy Presley, who was the original final girl in the first Camp Miasma movie. And she's interested in collaborating with her on this reboot that she's going to be doing. So, you know, there are a lot of, there's explicit references to Sunset Boulevard. Like she's saying, like, you know, she lives in this secluded place. She's talking on, you know, to her partner, and she's like, she's not going to be like Norma Desmond. And then when she arrives there, she's like, I know, I'm kind of like that woman from Sunset Boulevard. And Chris is like, oh, I don't even know her name. Yeah, I don't know. And, yeah, a lot of sort of explicit movie references. She stops in a gas station on the way, and the great actor Patrick Fischler is there, and in this like weird ghostly, or that takes place in the actual movie. That's sort of like a very Mulholland Drive shout out kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's just definitely a lot of, you know, Jane's influences are really present here. Obviously we're playing in the idea of these slasher franchises that go on, and studios kind of want to revive because it's IP, and that's what sells. Like there's a good deal of show business satire going on here too. So yeah, everything about her her getting to the camp. We should definitely talk about the look of the movie. I mean, it's been, I've seen images and some quick videos on social media and stuff, but the matte paintings that they use to
Yes.
depict the campground and everything is gorgeous, and it just has this weird like otherworldly feeling that I think Jane is also very good at creating this idea of like artifice and kind of wanting you to realize that you're watching a movie as you watch it. And then we have the first interaction with Billy. So how did all that build up work for you when we are first meeting Chris here in her scenario?
Well, I think that the way that we're introduced to the world of this movie with the Camp Miasma franchise was really brilliantly constructed. And, it pokes fun at the genre. It's clearly making fun of Friday the 13th and Sleepaway Camp and all these other movies. And just the detail of everything, like the visual imagery and like the VHS and all that stuff, I was like, this is so impressively constructed. And yeah, the fact that we're opening on the movie and we're introduced to the character of Chris, who was this indie darling who directed, like a version of Psycho, but from the shower curtains perspective, which
Yeah.
that was so funny when they announced that. When I first saw the movie, I'm like, that's kind of genius. That is hilarious and so ridiculous. But I like the idea of how, she's hired to do this reboot of this franchise, and her goal is that, the studio's goal is to make the franchise's transphobic premise a bit more palatable to the modern audiences. And Chris talks about her attachment to the series, and I really love diving into a bit about her in these opening minutes. And the decision to cast Billy in the film and everything, it's like, oh, that's a nice play on like all these other horror films that have gotten rebooted, like Halloween and Scream, where you bring back the star of that movie all these decades later and you're interested to see where they go. So the journey to get up to this place in the Pacific Northwest where Billy is, I thought was so enticing. And yeah, you brought up the visual look of it. This film is so beautiful looking, and the matte paintings and the colors are so vivid. And one of the things that made I Saw the TV Glow so great was the cinematography by Eric Yu, who returns to lens this film. And honestly, you could make an argument that this looks even more beautiful than that film. Like the decision to do all this stuff very creatively with the colors, and then it's very bleak at certain points, but then it's also very vibrant in others. I really love the aesthetic choice here. But regarding how we're introduced to the world and how we're introduced to Chris, I thought it was a great way of setting up this character, and how, even though she is committed to doing what she's doing, there is something underneath her where she's a bit reclusive and doesn't fully embrace who she is. And I really loved that side. And of course, we get that great, witty comedy delivery from Hannah Eyebinder that made her so great on Hacks and all these other projects that she's done. So I love the way that we're introduced to this world. I think it's great. And I really love, too, the sequence where she goes to that hotel and she's like, do you guys have a DVD player? And they're like, DVD player? Then we get that shot of him grabbing the player and it's covered in dust, and then you just see like the dust flying off and everything. I love little touches like that. I'm just like, oh, rest in peace, DVD players.
And the really awkward, like it like zooms in on his face and he says like Yahtzee, and then it cuts like fades weird. Like again, it's kind of calling attention to like it almost feels like a weird cut that would be.
And then
like
him being like, oh, I was in this movie.
Yeah, he was a local actor who they threw in the movies, and you see him later on, having a small part. Yeah, that just felt so right that this little town that had this big movie filmed in it a long time ago. Everyone's still kind of like dining out on that.
Yeah, there's these pauses, not just in this opening, but throughout the movie that honestly work very strongly because of how it's paced and how it's cut together. Like the camera just stays on them at the right time. It holds for the right period of time to make it uncomfortable, but also super funny.
Yeah. Yeah. She's watching the movie on the DVD, and you see him in the movie, and it's like at the end of the film, and he's like, he's dead forever this time. It's just such a like, campy kind of delivery from that kind of movie. But yeah, so then she makes her way to the camp. I love Hannah Einbinder too. I think she's great in Hacks. I think she's great in this. For me, Gillian Anderson was like the star of this movie.
Yeah.
I just absolutely loved everything. Like her line delivery, her accent is just like dripping. She's got like this like southern drawl kind of thing that she's going for. I like her first introduction. Chris stumbles upon this like screening room that's there and is like almost like seductively examining the film there. Like she's almost like as we learn, she struggles with some elements of her sexuality. She's almost like attracted to film. Like that that is what turns her on sexually and emotionally and everything. So she starts like playing a scene from the first film, and Billy just gets to like emerge from the shadows and says like, "Oh, I wanted to scare you." She gets a couple moments like that. So I just really liked their initial meeting. She is very almost Norma Desmond like she is this
She's
larger than life.
Very Norma Desmond like.
Yeah,
and I think I've said before on this
star.
podcast that Norma Desmond is one of the scariest characters ever put to screen. She scars me so much. Ever since I first saw that movie in high school, I remember I was sitting in the classroom watching that, and I was very petrified. Like the facial expressions, her, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille." Makes me uncomfortable. But I love that movie
Freddy
so
Krueger,
much.
Michael Myers, Norma Desmond. Those are your
Big
bads.
Freddy doesn't really scare me that much. Michael, he just has a mask. He doesn't really do anything enticing. Norma Desmond is fucking freaky. She's very
the worst, yeah.
she's very freaky.
The worst one.
But also, like, we talk about this introduction scene between the two of them. We can't forget to talk about, do you like fried chicken? Do you like dipping sauce? What was your initial reaction when seeing this dipping sauce sequence?
I loved it. It was over the top, and so it kind of reminded me of the it was giving in May December, that moment when she's like, "I don't think we have enough hot dogs," and cut to like a million hot dogs.
But this took it to a new level because we got like the cross dissolves and like the launch shots on the dipping sauce, and then the sound of like the thudding as she's trying to open it with her nail.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is way too good. Then the crunching of the chicken. I want to know what the process was like when they were doing like the ADR for that and everything. Like, I want to know what it was like when they were behind the scenes doing that. But also, I want to know what the pitch was like, being like, okay, Jillian, there's going to be a scene where you're crunching on fried chicken. Like, I just want to know what the selling point was like.
Pitch was.
I want to know how that all came to be.
Yeah, I think, it made sense to me, made sense to my audience. I think that both times I saw it, people laughed out loud at that, and it's, I don't know, it's just kind of, it's playing in that heightened arena of a, slasher teen movie where, like, everything is just so, like, feels so sensual, and everything is, an innuendo, and, I think it just plays into their, I enjoy what goes on in the movie later on. I kind of, like, this was almost the peak of me just, like, experiencing pure pleasure of like I just thought it was so funny the way that they were interacting with each other when they start having the conversation about the movie and the film industry and everything, and they're kind of instant connection, but they're also trying to suss each other out a little bit. I just think that this part is just so well written and well performed. I kind of like enjoyed this as just the moment of almost more of a traditional movie making, like them having this initial meeting. I just think that everything was so great. To get into their conversation a little bit of what they start talking about during the chicken scene, there's a lot of talk of she's like looking at this old poster of the movie, and it has this tagline of like, if it gets too real, you can always turn it off. And Billy calls that out and mentions it and says, like, I think that's where the film starts getting into that it's kind of about this like disassociation from during sex or from life. And Chris talks about how she kind of just likes to throw herself into work, and the personal stuff has always kind of been a backseat, just a sort of secondary to her. And kind of in conversation with TV Glow here too, where like TV and movies are literal like portals to other worlds. Like we enjoy them. We like glom onto them so much because they open our imaginations and they put us in this new space. And it can be kind of like uncomfortable or scary when those like worlds blend together, when the real world bleeds into our fictional world or vice versa. And then, just some general discussion about like how she sees her role in this movie. And that's where she talks about like kind of being, laundering the reputation of like having this cool new queer director take on this problematic IP. And she talks about I love again, this is kind of her character from Hacks kind of bleeding over too. She's like, oh, what with the capitalism being so late and all, and like railing against the current state of the world, which more on her. That's Hannah Einbeiner is always great at that. So yeah, just kind of delving in a little bit of like Billy wants to get to know her as a person and know what this means to her, why she wants to do it. And I think we're just starting to like scratch the surface of what goes on with Chris and why Billy is so like kind of fascinated with her.
Yeah, this whole dynamic was really fascinating because Billy initially dismisses the way that Chris kind of overly like interprets the series and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but she does express interest in acting again. And then, Chris tries to pitch to her agent and the studios that this reboot really should star Billy. Like this is the revival that this franchise needs, and Billy being a part of it would help out greatly. And I love what follows this when they watch the film together. This whole sequence, many different emotions, laughs, tears, and fears. And this was like a good like 15 minutes of the movie where we're inside the movie watching it unfold. And just first of all, the people that are in this sequence as the movie is playing, I'm like, they're there and they're there and they're there. The big one that made me go, what the fuck, was Eva Victor
Yep.
with a mohawk as a DJ.
I saw their name in the credit the first time I saw it, and I was like, I didn't even know they were in this. And then it took me like a good 2 minutes to be like, is that Eva Victor?
I was just like, first of all, fucking base as hell that they're in this, which is awesome. But then it's also like Quintessa Swindle and Zach Cherry from Severance
yeah.
was also there. So I really love how the sequence plays out. I like the look of it. Like it looks very like old school, like 16 millimeter. I like the aesthetic that they put onto it and everything. Feeling straight out of like the 70s when the movie came out. And like this sequence plays out like how a lot of these slashers are. They're very silly. They embrace it. But then there's also a dread that's underneath it. And never in my life did I think that a Counting Crows needle drop would make me laugh, but also terrify me and make me kind of emotional as the sequence was playing out and this massive killing spree is happening. And I was just like, this is incredible. Like, I was so invested with this element of the movie that anytime I watch a movie that involves filmmaking and then we see the movie playing inside the movie, I'm like, it kind of took me out a little bit. But this, I was so immersed in this entire set piece. And I loved the way it was executed. I loved how it flowed and how it wrapped up and everything. And then we would occasionally cut back to Chris and Billy in the screening room watching, and Chris would talk about how she knows the film by heart, points out lines and filming techniques like a split diopter shot. And then we also see that while
I felt the scene there. When I saw the shot, in my head, of course, I said, split diopter. And then she goes, split diopter. I was like, oh, yep, you got me.
Yep. Too good, too good. And I like how during this sequence, we see that Chris is so immersed in it, but Billy is very uncomfortable watching it, and you could just see the impact that this film had on both of them, which I really appreciate. How one has this huge love for it, and then the other, despite starring in it and having a fairly good career from it, it scars her. It leaves a bit of trauma on her. So I really appreciate that dynamic.
I think the implication is that she didn't really act much after this. I think it kind of was like she was, the main girl in this, and then because of the experience or whatever, she kind of like retreated as an actress and stuff. So I from that part of the movie on, and we'll get into what happens later and everything. But I do think it's almost like Billy's feelings about the series, about the original movie and everything, is almost a little bit ambiguous. Like she's doing that, doodling the little death mask in almost like almost like she's possessed or something. And seems very uneasy watching it and everything. I think it's, I don't know. I guess it's it's open to interpretation, really, how she is reacting to it in this moment. But we're also seeing it through Chris's eyes and how she's experiencing everything too. So I think that I agree with you that sometimes when you get into a movie within a movie, it can get a little detached and start to be uninteresting or anything. I think that this is like Jane's bread and butter, though. They're so cool at creating these different worlds, just like the pink opaque in TV Glow. I enjoyed a lot of this. I love the part when they're explaining the characters within the movie are explaining the origin of Little Death and saying that this was this person who was gender fluid and would present differently on each day, and that they were in the lake, and people were bullying Little Death, and Zach Cherry is like, they drowned him. They had to. It's this I don't know, just a funny way to explain that they murdered a person, and obviously pretty not understandable, but just the whole sort of origin there, the Little Death massacre scene. The one thing that almost kind of, I don't know if it took me out, but I almost don't necessarily understand the decision, is that a lot of the Little Death kills and everything, I would have kind of expected it to be more 80s 90s practical effects kind of thing, which could be it certainly doesn't have to look realistic whatsoever, but it almost goes for a CG big splashes of bright red blood kind of thing. I guess the whole point is just to look a bit artificial. It almost is, it's supposed to highlight that this is a movie. So just was kind of an interesting choice I didn't necessarily understand, but still very cool. Yeah, very cool one shot. The moment when you kind of get to see Little Death's face through the mask, and it's just this sort of
moment.
Yeah, this sort of, again, kind of ambivalence, which I think the movie is talking a lot about disassociation and feeling of numbness in certain parts of life. So this I think that the movie within the movie was very funny, very interesting, starts kind of revealing a lot of what's going on. And so we see that original scene from the first movie with Billy's character in a sex scene, and we should also say Amanda Fix plays the young Billy, and she's very good too. She kind of does she's acting alongside Gillian Anderson's style, and I think she captured it well.
Yeah.
But so we have this moment of her character having that typical sleepaway camp horror movie moment of I'm gonna lose my virginity to this guy who's kind of a douchebag and whatever, and so Chris is kind of obsessed with this look that she gets in her eye at the last moment of it, and Billy is asking what do you think is behind that, is it fear, is it shame, there's something else underneath that, and Chris is I want to experience that, and I believe it's around then that the power goes out, and so we're kind of left in flux, and don't really get the conclusion of the movie and everything. But from here on, everything kind of starts to slip into, I don't know, I guess a little bit abstract, a little bit sort of, everything gets a little more foggy and dreamlike. But yeah, how did that work for you, kind of transitioning into a less sort of conventional part of the movie?
I mean, I definitely anticipated this because I knew that Jane Schoenbrun wasn't going to stick with the conventional route. I feel like the conventionalness helped set the movie up, and that was the perfect way to introduce us into this world for, a good, this was essentially pretty much the first half of the movie, and I really liked how the second half opted to push that away. Then that's when it leaned into the insanity, the craziness, and the topics that it was tackling in a much deeper way. And I thought it was a smooth transition. I could understand that for some people this is where maybe the movie kind of started to lose them a bit. I was still very immersed in this moment and everything, during this shift. And I think that the way that they incorporate that was very fascinating. Obviously, went in directions that I certainly was not anticipating.
I think the first time I saw it, it started to lose me a little bit here, and more so because of what I was saying before. I was just kind of enjoying the show business satire. I was enjoying the flirtatious build up between these two, and
you still get elements of that
you do,
during the
yeah.
second half and everything, but that's
Yeah.
not obviously the primary focus and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And it all just gets a little bit more abstract. I think the first time around, I just was not necessarily, on its wavelength. But once you know what's coming, I appreciate it a lot more on a second round. So yeah, I think the, next biggest event is that, obviously they've been having this flirtatious relationship the whole time. Chris kind of like she shoots her shot and kind of comes out and topless and is, with the aim to like seduce Billy, and Billy is just kind of like, okay, like she's, a little bit impressed and shocked and everything. And so, Chris has talked about how she struggles with sex and just always feeling like it's not something that comes naturally to her. It always feels kind of fake. And so they're set up on this beautiful, rug by a roaring fire and everything. And like Billy is attempting to have sex with her, and Chris is just in her head, can't get into it. She's kind of being haunted by images of little death everywhere, which, by the way, little death apparently in French translates to orgasm. That's what you would call an orgasm. So very, very appropriate. And yeah, so just the idea that like she just cannot get out of her head. She talks about they kind of like Nick's trying to have sex. They're like, it's not gonna work right now. It's not the time. That's fine. And talks about her view. Like she says she almost imagines herself as a film character when she's having sex. Like she sees it from, kind of a third person point of view. And that she thinks about herself as an intellectual when analyzing movies and thinking about how these things have an impact, but she almost wants to transform into a victim. She wants to be more helpless. She wants to be the object instead of the subject of the desire. And
the sexualized final girl that we see in all these horror movies.
Yes, exactly. And she's, being vulnerable and explaining this to Billy, and Billy is like, that's okay. Like, that's great. Like, this is all just play. And I think she's applying that to sex, to movies, to life, that it's all just kind of, it is what we want to make of it. It is kind of, everything is just a fantasy. And so, you're allowed to be a little fluid. And even if you think of yourself as this intellectual feminist woman, like, there is still an appeal to kind of wanting what you think you shouldn't want, in that sense. So, yeah, that's again, on a second time when I had more of a clear read on it, I was like, okay, this is like, I'm connecting the dots a little bit more. And I was enjoying what they were getting into there. But, yeah, anything else you want to add to that part of it?
No, this entire sequence where this was going on was certainly not what I was anticipating at all, and it was very overwhelming and a bit emotional when you think about it too. And I know that it was trying to like play on the trope of like the final girl and everything, and like she's like, oh, I'm describing myself as this girl with like the shorts and then the shirt and my boobs are hanging out and everything, that she has that slow-mo run, which played for laughs and everything, but it was also like a bit emotionally cathartic to watch and everything, and her breaking down her fantasies and her desires, and her coming to terms with who she is. And you could say like, oh, these moments are silly and they're hammy and everything, but honestly they're very poignant and really devastating to watch.
It manages to be both simultaneously. Yeah. So it's a weird mix.
That's the feeling that I got throughout pretty much the entirety of this movie. Like, it was beautiful and like emotional, but also really silly and goofy, and you have to ride a fine line when trying to balance that tone, and Jane does it terrifically here.
Yeah, and then I think we kind of get into she has that disastrous Zoom meeting with her the studio heads and everyone who are expecting
Queer
her
assistant.
script, and queer assistant is so funny. Just the person on Zoom, just like, again, just there to like co-sign or be there for optics or something, so yeah, Dylan Baker being a lunatic.
I fucking
so
love
funny.
Dylan Baker. He's one of my favorite character actors. I love him so much.
So good, yeah. And again, this also, I think on the first time, not lost me, but I was a little like, okay, where are we going with this? Chris starts freaking out, kind of panicking that she's having this realization all of a sudden that Little Death is real. Like the lines are blurring for her between the movie and real life, and she, is insisting, she's having this epiphany that Little Death is under the lake producing all of the movies, and it's all real. They all come from there, and obviously the Zoom meeting participants are not on her wavelength. So and then things start blurring even more. She goes in the gas station, and Patrick Fischler, who's the character from the movie, is there all ghostly and everything. And so then she's back with Billy, which again, everything is like so dramatic. There's, I think the scene earlier that we talked about, that's when all the candy is strewn everywhere on the floor, and she comes back to Billy, and there are like literally hundreds of candles lit all around. Like everything is just kind of dreamlike and otherworldly. And so I guess they talk about the sex scene again, and Billy kind of explains that she sort of, in that moment when she was filming that scene and everything, she almost like disassociated so much that I think she kind of says she like picked up Little Death's signal. She was both the watcher and the watched, and sort of from outside of her own body saw herself like be quote unquote killed, meaning I don't know if she necessarily means having an orgasm or losing her virginity, or if it's just, I don't know, just the idea of sex in general kind of felt like this death to her. And then again it gets kind of wacky, kind of abstract, where Little Death is here and chasing Chris through the woods, and like you said, she gets to have that like perfect victim moment where she is vulnerable and trying to preserve herself, and then all of the side characters from the movie show up and start getting killed in more and more ridiculous ways. How did all that work for you? Were you on board here? Were you a little confused, or were you like I'm in?
I will admit that when I first saw the movie, I was very confused by this decision. I understood what Jane was going for, but I was like, is this real, or is this all in Chris's head? Like, I was thinking I'm like, what's real and what's fake? And don't get me wrong, it was very well done, this entire set piece. I thought it was awesome and very much embracing its silliness with the kills and the gore. I thought it was delightful. Simultaneously, I'm like, what? I was like, what's the point of all this? Now, when I saw it a second time, and I'm still a little conflicted on it, but I definitely liked it a bit more this time around than I did on my first watch. And I definitely think that it provided plenty of good laughs. Like when she was being chased by Little Death, she's like, "Hi, first of all, big fan, love your work," and like that typical Hannah Eyebinder delivery that only she could pull off. And then her running away, then everyone coming in. I particularly love the kill of her partner's boyfriend, Thor. Yeah. Loved that little moment. Hey, I'm Thor, man. What's up? And then him just being massacred and everything. And then all the agents coming, including queer assistant. I just it was fun. It was certainly fun. And then they end up at the cabin, or she ends up at the cabin where Billy awaits for her. And then as they're about to have sex, Little Death approaches them, and Chris first like pleads for her life before accepting the fate. And then I guess she has an orgasm as Little Death spheres her and Billy simultaneously. And then we get this really harrowing shot of a VHS tape coming out where it has the title of the movie. And I will tell you right now, I thought that this was where the movie was going to end. There was a period where I was like, if this is the last scene of the movie, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. How did you feel about this whole sequence as it was playing out?
Definitely, like I said, changed a lot first to second viewing. First viewing, I was like, okay, I was enjoying all this build-up. I was enjoying all of the literal and metaphorical foreplay that was going on, and I kind of felt like this felt like, okay, we're just going to escalate it to like literally anything can happen. We're kind of throwing everything at the wall. All the random people are going to show up and for fun kills. It felt a little like it was just going for that random chaos kind of feeling, which again, that's indicative of the genre, that wouldn't be too out of place. I was just kind of like, okay, not the follow through that I really wanted, but I was like, yeah, it's fine. But second watch, I think I'm much more willing to interpret it as maybe not in her own head necessarily. Maybe, maybe some of it's happening in reality, but I think of it as a little bit more of a metaphor. She is surrendering to this image of herself that she was sort of pushing down the idea of, kind of embracing the sort of toxic image of being this, of embracing sort of this, helpless femininity that she's like so intrigued by and kept at a distance, just kind of like embracing that. And then, in terms of all the other characters showing up, that to me was kind of like killing off the professional and personal attachments that she never really felt all that connected to, for something that's more like primal, something that is more, it's Billy and it's little death and all these things that like she just feels in her body. It's kind of about, feeling instead of thinking, like enough with thinking about all of the, people at the studio she has to please, and her partner that she doesn't seem too thrilled with, like their romantic arrangement and stuff like that. And just like actually feeling what you and inside your body wants. And so, just kind of disconnecting from that, becoming, I think it's, the same shot. We're sort of seeing Little Death approach their bed through Little Death's eyes. And, the spear going in as a metaphor for orgasm or literally killing them, we don't really know, but, it's just the idea. And I think there's a quick cut there to like her younger self watching the original.
Yes.
And then,
which
the
felt
movie
very
printing.
Reminiscent of like I Saw the TV
Of
Glow
TV
when they're
Glow, yeah.
watching the Pinko Pig.
For sure, yeah. And then, the movie printing from, Little Death's little workshop or whatever.
Yeah.
That to me, that was like she's learned. She's like she's achieved something within herself. She's overcome some sort of anxiety and is like a little bit more accepting of who she is. Sexually, personally, just everything. So, and then just the little kind of wrap up of them walking to the gas station covered in blood. I saw Hannah discussing this on an interview, and I think she said that Jane had mentioned that there was, something about them being in that gas station looking insane, covered in blood, and like, being kind of like lovey-dovey with each other, was that almost it felt like a metaphor for just, queer love in general. Like there are, sometimes you could be in a public place and kiss your same-sex partner and you feel eyes on you as if you're standing there naked and covered in blood. Like you almost feel that foreign or that out of place in certain scenarios. And so it's kind of like making that literal and real. So and you get the moment again, a split diopter where Chris has the moment of like, he'll be back and he's still hungry for Little Death and everything, and just kind of leaving it off on that very, very typical, slasher movie ending after going through this more trippy, abstract kind of thing. So, I'm mixed on it. I'm still like sort of parsing it. I think I kind of enjoyed thinking about it afterwards more than I did actually watching it. But
yeah,
it's interesting as hell.
Boat.
Yeah, it's really fucking interesting, and I'm kind of enjoying seeing everyone pick it apart and getting some different reads on it.
Yeah, I definitely want to read a lot more into it and everything. And even though I've seen the movie twice and everything, there's still so much to dissect and break down about the movie that I'm still quite not sure if I understand everything. And maybe I'm not supposed to, but the end
You're supposed to feel it, not think about it. That's kind of what I'm going with.
Yeah, like what is that from? Isn't that from like Tenet? Don't try to understand it, just feel it or something.
But that's kind of the vibe that Billy is telling Chris too.
Exactly. But yeah, it's just them covered in blood, going to the gas station, getting all the candy and everything. I'm just like, this is really absurd, but I kind of enjoy it and everything.
Yeah,
so,
the candy motif throughout too, like that kind of like feeling like something that's indulgent. It's also kind of nostalgic, but it's like bad for you. Like just that idea of just kind of like giving in to your own desires and like acknowledging them and embracing them and kind of getting over that, that block that you have that keeps you from who you really are.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, the whole candy element of it all. But yeah, there's a lot to dissect about this movie. I still think that it may require another viewing or two for me to fully digest it, but I was very impressed with what I saw, and there's so much to celebrate about this movie. And just to quickly touch upon a few things, the performances, the two of them, they are brilliant. Together and separately, they're doing a lot of great work. I agree with you. While Hannah was awesome, and she is awesome, Gillian Anderson is the MVP of this film. She is so good in this. A side of her that I've never seen from her ever. I never thought in my life that, after watching the X-Files throughout my life, I never thought I would see Scully doing something like this and everything.
I never watched the X-Files. I actually know her best from Sex Education, where she is.
See, I couldn't get into that show, but that's a different discussion for another time. I
where
hate
she obviously
I
is
hate
very
Asa Butterfield. That's why.
okay. She obviously is very sex forward there, but she's a very
Yes.
different type of character.
But then it's like,
it felt like an
she
interesting
did like
parallel.
The Crown and all these other things. It's really amazing the range that she has as a performer, and then to see her do something like this, I mean, I certainly didn't expect her to do anything like this, but she was awesome in this. And then all the various character actors that make their way throughout the movie, they're all great too. But this is the Hannah Eyebinder and Gillian Anderson show from top to bottom. They're amazing in this.
Yeah, definitely. I think only other thing I would add is that when I saw it, I also saw a Q&A with Jane, and just like some of the things that they said that piqued my interest. First of all, when asked about the little death mask and like the design of it, Jane said, "Well, it all started when I saw Spider-Man: Brand New Day." It's like the vent that comes into play in that movie too.
That's funny.
Yeah. But they talked about how like they like the idea of this sort of nesting doll of a movie within a movie, because they were joking saying that allows them to go full genre and still be like kind of pretentious about it and kind of do the genre while also exploring it and unpacking it and deconstructing it. So, and I just really like their approach to, they said something like reality doesn't exist when you watch a film. Like, it is all artifice. Like, we are all literally staring at a screen with things that have been constructed and decisions that have been made. And they kind of really like to highlight that this all play, like Billy says. And it's all this sort of, collective hallucination that we're all choosing to have together, and that's kind of what makes movies so powerful and so cool. So I just think that it's a thorny one. It's something that, again, I'm at a place with their movies where I kind of really enjoy them as thought exercises, and I'm like, but do I enjoy it like as a movie? And that's where with this one, I think at the beginning I was like, oh, I'm fully on board. I'm like getting swept away in this. I love their banter. I was just feeling like the pure pleasure of it. And then it kind of goes into a more detached intellectual side of it. I kind of wish I felt that more evenly throughout. If you had a mix of both throughout, that would be perfect. That's like the ideal viewing experience for me. So yeah, I think I'm mixed but very impressed and curious to see how, my relationship changes to the movie as you watch it more, as I hear more perspectives on it, all of that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And then I guess just quickly highlighting the imagery, beautiful, one of the best looking movies of the year. The music by Alex G is so incredible. One of my favorite scores of the year. And then the needle drops throughout this movie. Oh my God. Like, there's so many great needle drops. I mean, we brought up the Counting Crows needle drop, which, truthfully, when I say this, I mean this sincerely. For the longest time, I was like, oh, Shrek 2 is going to have the best Counting Crows needle drop in the film. And this movie's like, hold my beer. And then they did it with this. And the usage of Allant December was just, again, it's so interesting to me how a scene like that could be so funny, so scary, and so heartbreaking all in one. I was like, this is just insane to me that they were able to pull this off. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And then also the usages of I Love You Always Forever by Donna Lewis, and then ended with Supernatural Super Seriousness by REM. Chef's kiss. Perfect way to conclude the movie. Just the technical elements of this movie were incredible, and I just hope that they get recognized in some way.
Yeah, it is. It's such a cool movie. I think it's definitely going to have its champions. Like, I think that if you like this movie, you probably really love it and are impressed by it. So I certainly hope that, I don't know about any mainstream awards attention or anything, but maybe some of the critics groups or the smaller shows can give it some recognition somewhere, because it's a really cool achievement.
Couldn't agree more. I'm wondering what Jane's going to do for their next movie. I remember, like, I saw someone tweet that before I saw the TV Glow came out, they posted a poll on Twitter being like, what do I write for my next film? And then a slasher ended up winning. So obviously this was the base for that and everything. But I'm wondering what's going to be next. I'm really wondering what's going to be the next thing that they do and everything.
I feel like I heard somewhere that they were writing a book or something first.
They are
That
writing the book, which I
yeah.
believe does come out sometime soon, I think. But yeah, I
I don't
wonder
know if
what.
an adaptation of that or if that's going to be totally separate from their film career. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what that's like too.
Yeah, I wish I could find the tweet of like what they wrote and everything. I think I saw like some comedy or some like Western thing or something. I don't know. I don't remember, but it would be cool to see Jane do something outside of the horror genre, but clearly that's their bread and butter. But I wonder what they could do next with the horror genre. Hopefully
Yeah.
not do another super bleak movie.
TV Glow is almost I don't even know if I would call it horror. It's just sort of like dread.
It's like horror adjacent. It's horror,
like
but
a-
not the
a
conventional kind
tragedy.
of horror.
Yeah.
It's like adjacent horror. And
Whereas this
everything.
is like pure horror, but like fun and kind of it's intellectual, but it's a little like
Yeah.
lighter on its feet.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's interesting to see what aspects of that they pull, or if they come up with something totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what did you rate Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma?
I rated this 4 out of 5 stars.
And this is my second 4.5 of the day. So, big fan of this movie. Again, didn't love it as much as TV Glow, but still adored this movie, even with some of the questions that I have about the film's conclusion. And I can't wait to watch it again when I get the chance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'll be a cool one in Jane's filmography and just overall to revisit in years to come.
Absolutely. And with that, that is a wrap on today's episode of Some Like It Real. Thank you all for joining us. If you're interested in following along our journey, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Brian Sutfield.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Vera Albarella and on Letterboxd at Alba_real_A.
And you can follow the show on all socials at Some Like It Real, as well as on YouTube at Some Like It Real. Be sure to subscribe and share it around and tune in every Monday and Thursday for a new episode of Some Like It Real on podcast platforms.
We'll see you next time.